Every time I see a face, don't you know, and you know, and you know.
Every day I'm truffling.
Ugh. Every day I'm shuffling. See, we're probably
Every day I'm truffling. Yep. Okay, you can hear us.
shuffling.
No, not shuffling. Truffling, Justin.
Truffling. Hold on.
So welcome to the Spur of the Moment podcast, where we look at Justin's forehead.
Hold on.
It's a nice forehead. This is the pre-show ramble where we talk and talk and talk until Justin's ready to count us in.
It's true.
This is the peak YouTube stuff that the Spotify people don't get to listen to.
He's absolutely correct. I'm copying in the link. I'm going to Instagram. I'm
Getting
posting it.
cold. We're gonna have to have spur of the moment hoodies made.
I'm posting the link in the description into the Instagram.
You know, for when that really bad winter hits and it's too cold to just sit here in a t-shirt, and I'm gonna need to
True.
put a jacket on.
It's true. It's true. And
And
then
then we can sell it to our, what are we at, 77 followers?
78, I think, actually.
78, yeah, it's 78.
I'm sharing it to the Facebook. Here is the live link. All right, I'm doing it. One of those. I'm getting it out of my. I'm getting it out of my old system now. I'm looking for my stopwatch. I'm finding my stopwatch. I'm opening my news story.
Okay. We don't need you to narrate everything you're doing. You're starting to drive me a little crazy.
And then
the incomparable Jordan cannot be compared.
We're doing a big stretch.
Big stretch.
Okay. Okay, we start the show in 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arate Media Pantheon. Please head to aratemedia.com to see plenty of podcasts from our friends. No, fuck. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Jordan. I fucked it up. Let me do that again. It happens sometimes, Jordan. Let the loose lips sink ships. Okay. In 3, Arte Media Pantheon. Arte Podcast Pantheon? Arte Media Podcast Pantheon.
Sibilance. Red roses run. Red roses run.
In 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arate Media Pantheon. Please head to aratemedia.org to see plenty of podcasts from our great friends. And if you would like to start your own podcast, they can provide you with the tools and resources to do so there. So that's aratemedia.org. ARETE media.org. On with the show, Jordan.
On with the show.
Flawless intro.
Nailed it on the first try. As far as Spotify is concerned.
It's always amazing how when you make one fuck up, it fucks up the rhythm of the whole intro. Welcome to Spur of the Moment podcast, everybody. I'm your host. I'm Justin Spurr. I'm joined, as always, by
the incomparable Jordan.
Jordan, I was owning the moment. I was taking a moment to take a sip of water. Jordan, I was creating suspense.
I thought you were allowing me to introduce myself for once.
Oh God! Now I'm choking on the water.
And then choosing to die on camera God. so that I could take over and assume full power.
Oh God!
I poisoned the water well.
On today's show. That was down the wrong hole. Seriously. On today's show.
Maybe you should try taking another sip of water there.
First, we start off with the news, like always. Today's show is immediately off the rails. There's a new Godzilla movie coming. They've officially announced it. They're making a Gundam movie, apparently. That's got a release date. Ben Kingsley is back in the MCU. Are they making that Armor Wars movie? The guy who made Saw has some thoughts about Saw. And Jumanji 3 and the Scary Movie 3 is coming back, apparently. Scary Movie is coming back. And then later, and much more. And then later, we've each selected an actor. We're going to talk about their filmography. I've certainly picked a massive selection for mine. And we're going to chat about them as actors, as performers. We're going to talk about it's going to be less about the individual movies and more about them as a whole. But we will be talking about the individual movies. So let's start off with our officially announced the new Godzilla movie. Officially.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's by the same people that made Godzilla 1, if I read correctly.
Yeah, the same guys who have made Godzilla -1.
They have earned a lot of respect, and I'm interested to see where they take it. Is it gonna bring in another well-known monster, or are they still gonna focus on Godzilla like as an individual character? It'll be interesting to see. Like, I mean, I still maintain, to me, the logical step in this world is for them to do Mecha Godzilla.
Well, I've always been like, if this is a remake of the first movie of sorts, then the second one should be a remake of the second movie. So yeah, then to me it's just logically fight a monster, and that monster to me should be Anguirus, like a modern, updated version of Anguirus. Or
yeah, but in this world, I feel like the logical response would be humans saw Godzilla and are like, we need to create a thing.
I know
specifically if it's an analogy for the World Wars, then America should be making a Mecha Godzilla.
I don't disagree with that, but also they just wouldn't have the technology, and you want to keep it real. Ironically, the more realistic version of this is there's just another monster, and
yeah.
You do Anguirus. You did the serious real world version of Anguirus, because I do maintain that first one took the notion of Godzilla destroying a city and made it unpleasant. Let's take the notion of Godzilla fighting another monster and make it unpleasant. Or another option is they don't even do Godzilla -2. They do something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll go that route. It's hard to say. I selfishly, if I can't have Mechagodzilla, I want King Ghidorah. I know it's been done by the Americans, and I know that's a build-up. You build up to that one. I don't care. I want them to tackle it. I want to see their version of that character. That's what I say, selfishly. That's me being selfish and like knowing we're burying the lead there and jumping ahead 4 movies, but I selfishly want that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want. But I'm just excited to see these guys. I mean, they won the Oscar. They won Godzilla an Oscar, so they've earned it.
They've earned it. They've earned a second swing, and I'm excited for that. Genuinely, I don't even care if it's in Japanese.
Right? I don't care that it's in Japanese. So I'm just these.
Go on.
I pulled up these 2 articles, and one was like, "What does Lee Winnell think of the Saw ending 20 years later?" And it's just nothing of an article. It's like, what did he have to say?
Well, I can say something, a news thing, which I heard about, which makes me a little uncomfortable.
What's that?
Which is so they're making some sort of animated Lord of the Rings thing, and they have Saruman.
Yes.
In it. And they're apparently actually using Christopher.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah, that was like, ooh, don't
what's
like
his name? The guy who played him in live action, whose name is escaping me. Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. That's it. That's the one.
They're apparently using his voices and stuff in it, and I know I don't care if he would approve of it. I don't really care the context in anything. When the dead are dead, let them stay dead.
Let the dead be dead. That's what I'm saying.
So I read about that, and I was like, that makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
Like just generally.
Yeah. So these 2 articles are basically like, what does Lee Winnell think of the ending? And he's like, yeah. He basically was like, I knew it when we wrote it. I knew it was going to be an iconic ending, and he was right. And then, what does he feel about the Saw sequel?
Sorry, for Saw 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other thing was like, what does he think about the Saw movies after he left? Because he only really did the first 2, I think.
Yeah, the Legacy.
And he's like, I don't really like them. I mean, they're not bad movies, but I kind of felt it should have ended with the 3rd one. And I'm like, yeah, probably. I mean,
yeah, well,
that's a pretty self-contained trilogy when you look at it.
To me, yeah, once Jigsaw dies, that's the movie's about him.
Right.
That's kind of it. It's done. You've killed. You've in this weird horror movie like tragedy of a film series. He is the protagonist, the not the protagonist, but the main character.
Yeah,
Like he is who the movies are about.
exactly. The problem is
Uh,
those movies never developed well, they have a well-known antagonist. They never managed to develop a protagonist that they could carry through the whole franchise.
yeah,
That's
each
probably
one is
why.
kind of an anthology series where it's more about the villain than it is the hero.
It's true. Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen the Happy Death Day movies?
I've never even heard of them.
It's the one where it's the girl and she gets killed. It's basically Groundhog Day, but it's a slasher movie.
No, I've never even
No?
heard of them.
Oh, I could sworn
I kind of wish you had told me about that when we were doing the horror stuff because I would have watched that.
Huh. Did I? No, I guess we did. We haven't done Time Loop. We did Body Swap. So I talked about Freaky. Same sort of idea as Freaky, where it's like, yeah, it's the what if, um, what if a slasher movie were it's the same people, What if a slasher movie were anyway? They're making a third one. You should watch them. It's hard to talk about the third one if you haven't seen the first two.
Interesting.
They're making a third one.
Well, we'll have to do a week where we do time loops, and I can do those.
Yeah, I'll have to find a way to work in time loops. So they showed a trailer or a teaser trailer, a little bit of teaser footage. It was like a Disney Plus trailer, and it had a little bit of that new Spider-Man show, which apparently
saw that.
It's just no longer remotely attached to Tom Holland anymore, which I think is funny.
I like that. I don't think it should be. I think it makes it stronger if it's not.
Yeah.
And the animation that I saw of it, I actually liked it. I didn't. It was. It reminded me. It kind of reminded me of a cross between not spectacular, spectacular and the 3D one.
I could see why you would say that. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I really quite like that like hybrid 2D. I like the art style. I like how it looks like an old school comic book, and I enjoyed how fluid the animation is. It looks 1,000 times better than that shitty Spider-Man show that they made. That looked like it was made in like a can.
This looks like it could be fun.
Right?
And that's kind of my takeaway from the 30 seconds of what we saw. I believe that this has the potential to be something fun.
I do hope we do get to see a better version of the suit though, because I always hate cheap versions of the Spider-Man suit, but that's just me.
I hope that that's the first episode, and then like after that he makes like an actual Spider-Man suit.
That would be my hope. So yeah,
that's my hope.
In that little trailer though, there's a little bit of footage of Wonderman, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm on premise I'm kind of interested in. It's okay. Hold on, let's actually say what it's about.
Wonderman.
Wonderman.
Do I know that character? I don't think I know that character.
Don't know if you do.
Is it Marvel's answer to Wonder Woman?
No.
You know how Hyperion is their answer to Superman?
No.
You know the character I'm talking about.
I do. I can't. I'm trying to read the article to see if it's. To my understanding, he's. What is Wonder Man? Let's Google it while we're here. Wonder Man. Basically, the plot of the show is going to be the guy goes to audition for.
Isn't the point of the show about Spider-Man because it's a Spider-Man show?
Oh no, this is a different show. This is the Spider-Man. It was just in this little clip of footage, essentially. This little package, this little trailer for Disney Plus.
Oh, I thought you said that Spider-Man was fighting Wonder.
Oh no! The Wonder Man was footage for the new show is in this trailer.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to read. What does he do? What is his deal?
What's the deal with Wonder Man?
He basically looks like he's a generic. He shoots laser beams out of his hands. Superhero.
Okay.
He started off as a bad guy, became a good guy.
Is he new?
No,
I've never heard of him.
He's a real B. He looks like he's a real B-lister. What it looks like.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of what is this about.
That's a show.
Yeah, I think in certain versions of it, the idea of this is like it's supposed to be like this guy auditions for the show within a show. So he's auditioning for the show Wonderman, which is a show that takes place in the MCU. And
Interesting.
while he's on this show, he winds up with superpowers and he becomes Wonder Man. I'm not exactly sure what I've heard of Wonder Man before. I just don't know exactly what his deal is. But the thing about it though is they brought Ben Kingsley back, so he's back as Trevor Slattery, and he's teaming up with this new superhero guy.
As fake Mandarin.
No, he's no longer fake Mandarin. He's just
No, but I mean he's the same character that played fake Mandarin.
He is the same character that played fake
He was
Mandarin.
he was in Shang-Chi, so we know that he still exists.
He's still around, very much still around. I'm interested in that.
Okay.
That sounds fun.
I'm not interested. If it comes to Disney Plus, I might put it on. It's given me from the very loose talking that you're giving to me of it. It's giving me very Prince Andor vibes, where it's like, who is this character and why should I care?
Yeah, that's true. I will say that I've heard good things about Agatha all along. I've heard that show's actually good.
Or not even Prince Andor. What's that Star Wars one?
Andor.
The Rogue One. Andor.
You said Prince Andor, and I didn't bother to correct you because I assumed you were doing it intentionally.
No, I was thinking of when they were going to make that one about Aladdin, and it was the Prince character.
Oh, Prince Anders.
Yeah, or this one, which is Andor.
To my knowledge, he's a reasonably well-known character.
You can see how I might have mixed the two names up.
I do see how you can mix that. You could have mixed them up. I thought you were talking about Andor, and you called it Prince Andor as a bit.
No, I was thinking of the Aladdin because of what I had to watch this week.
That's fair. I Agatha all along is apparently good, so anything can be good.
I have not watched it, so I couldn't say.
I might watch it.
I really did not care about that character.
I know. Apparently, the show's barely about her, though.
Just like I won't really care. I don't really care about the Echo one, the one from Ant-Man?
Echo. Echo is not from Ant-Man. Echo's from Hawkeye.
Whatever. The point stands. Don't care.
No. That was like a spin-off. Xerox at that point.
Yeah, if anything, you're kind of just reinforcing my point. I don't care. Who is that? Why do I care?
Anything can be good.
As you said, it's a Xerox of a Xerox. It's a character that wasn't even a character that now you're trying to make. Anyways, I think what I'm trying to say is I'm a little worn out with all these Marvels.
I mean, yeah, unless they do something like real interesting, and I'm not. Yeah,
they kind of need to just, and this may be one of our hot takes. End the MCU, and end it.
They're gonna
end it, and then just do movies where it's like, yeah, you can reference Thor and be like, yeah, Thor is a thing that exists, but Thor doesn't have to be with Iron Man all the time. Right. Or he could be. And you can just not make big fanfare about it and not make it a big deal.
They're gonna end it with a Secret Wars and a big Robert Downey Jr. doing a big Doctor Doom. Hey, speaking of which, you know what? Let's do that story next.
Have we seen footage of him as Doctor Doom?
No, but the Russo brothers explain.
Then I don't know that I care.
The Russo brothers explain why they returned for Avengers Doomsday with Robert Downey Jr. And Jordan, do you think that the answer is money?
I mean, yes, but I don't think that's the answer they gave.
I mean, yes. I don't know. It's money, right? It's money.
I think the answer is they received the correct offer to bring them back one more time.
Right. So, okay, this is what they said. We're all very close, Joe told Games Radar at MCM Comic-Con 2024. We had been working on another project before Marvel approached all of us. We're working on another project with Robert. There was a story that evolved through conversations that we got very excited about because it's always got to be the story. So that Joe said, why would we come back if we didn't feel like we had a story that had a possibility of being on equal footing with Infinity War and Endgame, unless there's a kernel there for an idea that's really explosive. So clearly, money.
Definitely money. Same with Robert.
Same
with Mr. Downey Jr.
Marvel showed up because Marvel's a person, and Marvel just had a check and just kept writing zeros. And they went,
No, Justin. They showed up with a dump truck full of money, and then the Russo brothers were like, "Oh no, we're gonna need more than that." And Marvel was like,
Jordan, they don't have
and
a dump truck full of money. It's unreasonable.
and
Clearly, it's one executive in a
and
suit
then
just with a check being like,
and then several other dump trucks showed up. And then they were like, no, no, not enough. And then the executive with the
no,
wall with
that's
the checkbook showed up.
that's all ridiculous. What it was is they just pulled out a phone and they just hit a number. They went boop. And it was like, no, we couldn't compromise our creative. Boop. Oh, no, but we really boop. I'm sorry. That's how much money? This will be deposited into your bank account.
See, clearly what it was the executive sat down across the table from them and just slid a blank check and said, write whatever you think you need to get this done.
Right? What's it? What's that? What's exactly? They just slid a check across the table.
You just write what you feel needs to be on that check.
Now, there's no number that's too small. So I guess we might as well stick in the Marvel era, area. So do you remember how we previously discussed whether or not Nicolas Cage would wear the costume in that Spider-Man Noir show, or whether or not the costume would even, in fact, show up? Well, here's what I will say. I cannot speak as to whether or not he is going to be wearing it, but it does appear as though we were correct. At the very least, a stuntman will wear it, because there's some set footage of an actually surprisingly accurate-looking costume.
Yeah, but I mean, that just checks out.
I mean, I'm just impressed
that it would be.
No, honestly, I quite legitimately thought we weren't going to see the costume the entire show.
Okay, let me rephrase that then. That's what I thought it was going to be. A stuntman in the costume being quote-unquote young.
I mean, it's a pretty impressive
Spider-Man.
looking action sequence. Like, it's him on top of a car. It looks fun. It's making it look fun. I'm like, you know what? All right. Cynicism temporarily and hesitantly suspended. Yeah, suspended. I like suspended. Perfectly ready to be reinstituted on a dime.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So they announced that Jumanji 3 Manjis, the third Manji. Manji? You're leaving me in the wind here, man.
Thronji?
Three Manji, we got it. We got there. 3 Manji is apparently coming out, Jordan. It's apparently after coming out. Most of the cast is set to return. And it is supposedly coming out December 11th, 2026.
Cool. Do we have any idea of what the story's going to be? Are they going to continue the plot thread of now these characters are coming to the real world and the consequences that fall from that? Or
it is unclear. I don't know. Let's see. Plot details are under emerged, but it's not immediately clear if the real world teenage versions of the characters will also reprise. So we don't know. But that's what I think it was. Okay. That's what I thought the second one was. Yeah, I think they should have the quote unquote real version of Dr. Bravestone, where he's like not being controlled by anybody, and you just get to see what he's like.
Yeah, and he's still like, what I would do is I would have it where it's like you see what he's actually like, and he's still over the top, but like he has his own identity.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. And to be fair, yeah, the second one, I think it ends with the
like, and then that's where like you can play into the Rock stereotypes and just have him be the Rock basically.
I think that'd be fun.
And then like you have Karen Gillian, her character, and like she's the femme fatale, but she's still like essentially have it be where these actors' actual personalities shine through while they're still playing into the archetype of what their character is.
I think that'd be fun. But I mean, that's the second one ended with the Jumanji coming to the real world, but also that's technically what the first one was about. But they also haven't done that, for 2 movies at this point. So I guess it's
the first one is about them playing the game and it coming to the real world. I don't know if because of how the game works now, it's not like they're playing a board game in the real world.
Yeah, true.
It is different.
So Jordan, remember Scary Movie?
I have memories of that, yes.
Well, apparently they announced that the Wayans brothers, who made the first 2 Scary Movies, are returning to the Scary Movie franchise. So the very original guys who made Scary Movie are coming back. My question is, are they going to go back? They posted a picture with Ghostface. Are they going to do Ghostface again? Or are they going to do Art the Clown?
I don't think they have the legal rights to use Art the Clown in their movie. Isn't he a Terrifier character?
He is, but I mean, Ghostface is a Scream character technically, I guess. Although I guess the Ghostface mask is a generic, technically a generic Halloween mask. I guess maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you they might have a clown who's violent, but I don't know that necessarily you'll look at him and think, if anything, if they were to do something like that, I imagine it would be like an amalgamation of the clown from It and the
Yeah,
one from Terrifier.
probably.
And he would probably like, and maybe those two combined with like a parody of the Joker, and it would be like an amalgamation of several clowns, so
Probably.
that they can't get in trouble for it.
My thing is, I just hope it's R rated again, and then they go back to being R rated, and they stop doing this like PG-13
Scream
parodies.
Scream is the one. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one, but Scream is the one where I think it's the third one. They go to the mansion and it's got the butler who has the little hand.
That's
And
scary. It's a scary movie, and that's the second one.
oh, then no, I don't think I know what Scream is.
No, scary movie. That's what we're talking about, not Scream.
Yeah, so it is the same franchise.
Well, Scream is a different franchise. Scream is
No,
Scream.
I know, but the one that I'm thinking of is
Yeah, it's
the one
second
that
one.
we're talking about.
Yeah, scary movie.
Oh, okay, cool. I wasn't sure.
Scary
and
movie
I
is
wanted to
a
confirm.
parody of is that though, those really lazy parodies where they
Yeah,
uh
like a movie, epic movie.
yeah, scary movies where that starts.
Yeah. Okay, so we are thinking of the same thing. Cool.
Yeah.
Just wanted to confirm.
Um
So yeah, if they were to do a parody of a clown, my answer would be that it would probably be an amalgamation of
I mean, it's
several
a scary movie.
clowns.
They could probably just get away with straight up doing a version of Art the Clown where it looks just like him.
Maybe, or maybe not. Hard to say. The world's changed.
Apparently, they've announced
Part of your Broadway World podcast says Scream is Ghostface.
Scream is Ghostface, yes, but Scary Movie is a parody of Ghostface. He looks like Ghostface. I mean, he is Ghostface. It's a parody of Scream. The first one, especially, is just a parody of Scream, which is kind of like, in my opinion, a hat on a hat. Because technically speaking, Scream is already satire, but
I mean, isn't that the joke though? That it is a hat on a hat.
I don't know, it's been so long since I've seen the first Scary Movie. I honestly couldn't tell you.
Me too.
So they announced, Jordan, that they're making three new. Apparently, they're making three new Lego movies at Universal Pictures. One of them is
Okay.
going to be directed by Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman. And it says
Interesting choice.
the Lego Group has partnered with Universal Pictures to create three brand new, still untitled, reportedly live action movies. Joe Wilford.
Wait. You said they're Lego movies.
I guess they're going to be like live action.
So like stop motion?
I'm guessing a live action animated hybrid, maybe? Or is it like three live action movies that are just about Lego?
Okay, that's weird. Is it bad that when you said the person that directed the Wonder Woman movies, my immediate thought it was before you said the live action stuff, which is confusing.
That is confusing.
My immediate thought was, oh, so she's definitely going to do like a Wonder Woman Lego movie, right? And it's going to exist in the same universe as the Batman Lego movie, and they're setting up like a DC Lego movie universe.
I mean, that's kind of what it seemed like. Like, yeah, they were going to do a DC Wonder Woman movie, like a Lego Wonder Woman movie. I mean, but
yeah,
but
but now you've said that these three movies are live action, which if they're Lego, then does that mean stop motion? Yeah, thank you. Exactly part of your Broadway World podcast. How is live action supposed to work for Lego? The only way that it does in my mind is if it's stop motion and it's like it is a Lego movie that is an actual Lego that they've stop motion,
prohibitively
which would
expensive.
be bad.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a thing of like they go to, but no, yeah. Once you've done the Lego movie, that's kind of it. And those movies did badly. Like, I mean, the first one did exceptionally well, but the second one didn't do nearly as well. And then Ninjago effectively bombed and killed the whole endeavor. And same with I like Lego Batman, but that movie didn't do well. So like, weird. Yeah, it's weird. Maybe the statement's just weird.
Unless they mean that they're doing another like what's the one? Cause I'm happy. Da 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 da. What's that? Will, not Will.
Will
The
Ferrell?
musician.
Oh, Ferrell?
The one who has he's doing his bibliography,
Oh, it's
which is a real event, but it's in Lego.
a biopic. Oh, you're talking about yeah, I think that was Pharrell.
Will Will Ferrell?
Yeah, not Will Ferrell, just Pharrell. I think that was Pharrell.
Pharrell?
Yeah, you're
The
talking
guy
about
who sings the guy who sings Because I'm Happy.
yeah, it's Pharrell. I think that's piece by piece or brick by brick. I think is what you're talking about.
Whatever. My point is maybe it's another one of those where it's a live action, like a movie that took place in the real world, but they're doing it in Lego.
Maybe. I mean, that's not how that's worded, but maybe. I don't
It's
know.
the only thing that would make sense to me, because otherwise that makes no sense.
And then finally, they talked about. I got two. You know, let's do the Moana 2. They talked about the director talked about taking a TV show and turning it into a movie, and how it was this exceptional endeavor. And I'm and how it allowed them to really stretch their wings creatively. And I'm like, really? Because that's not reflected in the trailer. Man, that movie looks like crap. That's just another
I
excuse to bash
mean,
that movie.
I don't know. It looks okay. It
Cheap.
looks like what you would expect a straight to DVD movie from the 2000s would look like.
Yeah, but it's
Like
going to
some of
theaters.
some of them weren't bad, and some of them looked like they deserved to go to theaters. Like, I think The Lion King 2 was good and looked good for
Ooh.
what it was.
Yeah, but for a theatrically released movie, nah.
No, that's where I don't know that I agree that it should go to theaters, but I don't think that for what it is, which is a thing that was supposed to be a TV show. Here's what I'll say: it looks better than some of those Kung Fu Pandas, the Mega Minds, the
I'll give
like
you.
like
That'll give you.
like those TV ones, which
Yeah.
are actual TV ones. This one doesn't look awful. It's middle of the road, is what I
Yeah.
would say.
It's to me. It looks unacceptable for a Disney theatrical release.
For a theatrical release, I agree.
It
I
looks.
think it's lacking, or at least the trailers make it look lacking.
It's not even that the
Um,
animation looks stilted and cheap. It's that none of the vocal tracks match like at all. It just looks bad and cheaply made, and it is. So it's kind of intellectually insulting to have them be like, "Oh, we had all our artists working on this." It's like, no, you didn't. No, you
um,
didn't.
I'm just yeah. I want to be fair to it.
I don't. It's Disney. They don't deserve fairness.
I mean, you're not wrong. Look what they've
But
been
also,
doing
like,
lately.
I will say nice things if Disney wants to. We're looking for a Disney Plus sponsorship.
I'll sell my soul.
I'll sell my soul. Also, apparently, Jordan, they're making a Gundam movie. They announced the
I
Gundam
think
movie's director.
like a live action one,
Yeah, a live action one.
because that
And
works so well for Power Rangers.
I mean, that's because that creative team was actively ashamed of Power Rangers. But I'm not against more giant robot stuff. I think last week one of these weeks we talked about a Voltron movie. I want more
Here's
live action giant robot
here's
fightings, not
here's what
less.
here's what I'll say. I'm not a big enough fan of. It's not a Dragon Ball situation. It's
Ah.
it's it's. I'm not a big enough fan of the original. It's a Knights of the Zodiac
For
situation
me, it's just gotta look like the
where
thing. I can.
I'm not a big enough fan of the original where if they made major changes, I would notice necessarily.
Unless those changes were visual. Like if it didn't look right, I'd be like, I don't know Gundam, but I know that doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Like it's just gotta look like the thing
Um,
for me. That's how low my bar is for this.
Yeah, like I don't. If characters aren't exactly in character, I guess I should say, I won't notice it because I don't know the original
I feel
characters.
similarly about Voltron, where I'm like, as long as it looks like Voltron and it punches a big bad guy,
Yeah, as long as it's the five lions that turn into the giant robot, I don't really care what the humans look like. That's not the
right?
important part.
Yeah, as long as they get. To be fair, I've never actually watched Gundam. I just know it involves giant robots. As long as they get
I've,
into
I've
giant
watched
robots.
I've watched some of the not all of, but some of the Netflix version.
For Voltron or Gundam.
Yeah, Voltron.
Oh yeah, I watched a bit of the for Voltron. I watched a bit of the Netflix version. But
not the Is there a Netflix Gundam one?
no, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
But I
Because
honestly don't know.
the way you said that, it made it imply like there might have
Oh
been,
no,
and that's
I
what I
thought you
was
were
talking
talking
about.
about. I thought you were talking about a Netflix Gundam show.
No.
Gundam is one of those things where I've seen like a bit of one of the shows from like the mid 2000s, but it's one of those things. It's like there's so much of it, and it's such an
Yeah,
involved like.
I seem to remember, and maybe I'm thinking of another toy, but I seem to remember growing up, one of my friends or our friends or whatever, um, having a Gundam toy and
I
playing with it.
I recall something like that.
Um, and it's one of those, like, I remember it being around, but I didn't really. That wasn't my thing. Like, I
Um,
had Yu-Gi-Oh, I had Beyblades. There's certain staples that like I grew up with, and that just wasn't one of them.
yeah, same. Yeah, it just you only
It was
pick up so many
there. It
things.
was it was around. Other people enjoyed it, but yeah, like there's only so like a great example of that is I remember when I think I was in grade 9, and I went over to one friend's house, and he had a Naruto fighting game, and I wasn't I didn't watch Naruto at that point. Um and but he was really big into it, but he wasn't so big into some of the other anime that like I grew up with, because yeah, there's 17 billion of them, and you kind of have like a block that you
You
get
gotta
into, and other people fill the other block.
right.
Um
You gotta pick one.
yeah, like I had Dragon Ball, so I didn't have Naruto.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I had Metabots and Digimon, so I didn't have Gundam.
Yeah, to name a few.
To name just a few. That's it. That's the news. Ba 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 ba
No, no,
ba
no,
ba
no.
ba
We can't do that joke every week, Justin. People will get burned out.
ba 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 da ba da da. I did it. I did it. Anyway, today's show. Today's show is brought to you by Flight Center by Susan. Jordan, let's say you were maybe going to Mexico in a few months, and you needed someone to help you out, to book your flights, to get you a hotel, to find you cheap deals on packages. Who might you call? Who are you gonna call?
Well, in this complicated world, you know that you can rely on Flight Center by Susan's. She will look into the flights, which, like for our area, if I wanted to deal with the layovers and the this and the that, do I want to do all that research and look into that, or would I rather that I trust her judgment and let her look into it and come back at me with all the information that I need to make the decisions that are right for me?
Yes,
I think you know. I think you know what I want.
she is quick. She does a great job. She's very helpful.
She's
If you
dedicated.
She's dedicated. If you click the link in our description and you let her know that that we
The
sent you
spur of the moment a podcast
sent you, then that would help us out a lot, and she will help you. So that's Flight Center by Susan. Click the link in the description below. Jordan, shall we move on with the show?
I think we shall.
I have the yawns today for some reason, but that's okay.
It's probably the stupid god awful time change.
Oh, I mean, no, because that means I gained an hour of sleep.
No, we're not going to do this on air, Justin. We're not going to. This is not going to turn into a bit. No, no,
It was not a bit. It's what happened. We gained an hour
no,
of
no.
sleep.
Anyways, so we had to pick an actor, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, yes. With our extra hour of sleep, we had to pick an actor. No, I'm kidding.
Hey,
Yes.
man, it's lucky that we had. No, I'm not going to get into that rant either. There's no time. There's no time, Justin. I can make complaints about this. There's no time.
There's no time.
Fireworks are awful. That's the bit. That's the punchline of it. Anyways,
hashtag power suck. So this week the topic is yes. This week, hashtag fuck fireworks. This week the topic The topic is hashtag fuck fireworks. No, it's
where we just complain about fireworks
oh,
and
we
how
fucking
awful they
hate
are.
fireworks. Yeah. Oh my god, that's gonna be the thing that gets us canceled, Jordan. It's just us being like, we fucking hate fireworks. We hate
I
them
like
so
them when
much.
they're at a theme park and not going off at 1:30 in the morning.
I still better
Anyway,
like them then.
we don't have time for this, Justin.
We have all day today. We can do an
I
entire hour long discussion about how much we hate fireworks. No, this week the topic is pick an actor. And Jordan, who did you pick?
I picked Will Smith.
I picked Mr. Jimothy Carey himself. I don't know.
That's not his name, and you know it.
I don't know if that's his name. I don't think his name is Jimothy.
His name is Jim Carrey, Justin.
Mr. James Carey.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Let's find out. While Jordan talks about his first Will Smith movie, let's find out if Jim is short for anything.
My first Will Smith movie is a movie called Hitch.
William Smith.
Yes, William Smith is in Hitch.
The movie the song Switch comes from.
One thing that I kind of discovered as I watched a bunch of Will Smith movies, on average, he is kind of just himself.
On average, yes, I would agree.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing if you like his movies, which I like his performances.
Also, Willard Carroll Smith Jr.
Okay, I'm just gonna call him Will.
Willard. I would not guess Willard. But people, Willard.
So in Hitch, he's basically one of those guys who helps you gain the confidence to speak to women.
He's a shitty pickup artist.
No, he's not, and that's kind of the point of this movie. He doesn't there at one point in the movie. I'm just gonna jump around a bunch here. At one point in the movie, there's a guy who comes to him and is basically like, "Yeah, I need your help to get laid," and he very much is like, "No, I don't do that," and refuses to work with him because he doesn't do that. What he does is he helps gain you the opportunity to be yourself, basically. He opens the door so that you can walk through. And so in this movie, it's kind of got an A plot and a B plot where A plot is him trying to help. I'm blanking on the actor's name.
Kevin James.
That's it. Thank you. He's helping Kevin James, get an opportunity with a rich girl who he otherwise would never have had a shot with. While Will Smith is also, having his own girl that he has an interest in. And it's cute. I think it's a cute movie. It made me smile. It's not, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. I think it's a fine movie.
It's a fine movie. It has that song Switch.
You keep saying that. I didn't hear that in the theme or in the credits, which must be the second song that plays. But yeah, I liked it. Funny enough, it was actually, and a number of a few of these movies, I will be able to say this. It was my first time watching it, and at least my first time that I remember watching it. And yeah, overall, I enjoyed it, and that's Hitch. What's your first movie, Justin?
My first movie. So yeah, I picked Mr. Oh my god, I actually pulled up his name. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say his full name. Hold on, I had it here and everything. I had it ready. Mr. James Eugene Carey. And I feel...
James. Really? James.
Mr. James Eugene Carey himself. And I felt that the only place to start, logically, would be at the beginning. The very first movie that made Jim Carrey a household name. And that movie, obviously, is Mr. Ace Ventura. Pet Dick.
A product of its time.
A real, just absolute product of its time. Oh boy, everyone likes to point out the big old Mr. Winky shaped elephant in the room.
I'm gonna be the awful people on the internet. It's before the internet and the world got all PC and you could make a joke without offending everyone.
Got all woke or whatever. I mean, it's definitely like the least funny joke in that movie. It also doesn't really make a lot of sense because, like, you see the bit at the beginning where you see, like, unless that the guy at the beginning of the movie who's stealing the dolphin isn't supposed to be Ray Finkel. Big twist: Lois Einhorn is Ray Finkel. Um, because when you see him steal Snowball, it's very clearly like a man with like masculine hands, but like the Lois Einhorn is very mostly feminine. Doesn't really look like,
Slender.
yeah, very slender. Also, like the plan is really so he was
I mean,
they
could it not have been just spitballing here that the masculine body that you see at the beginning is perhaps a thug that she
that
hires?
that she just gave the ring to.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what I thought. Because I was like, the whole bit is like the reason why he figures out that it's Ray Finkel is because he finds Ray Finkel's bit of the ring on the bottom. So I guess he just gave his like as a payment, I suppose. But also, the plan doesn't make any sense. Like the thing about plans in movies is the longer period of time your plan takes over, the less it makes sense. So like, you waited all of this time. So like, Ray Finkel, this like got out of prison or got out of the mental institution.
Established themselves as a police officer.
Yeah, disguised themselves as a female police officer. Somehow became captain over the course of like 7 years. Became captain of this precinct, all leading up to stealing this dolphin. When there was this pet detective around, the movie implies that they've known each other for a while because he's on like a first name basis with her. So like it implies that he's been around and he's a pain in the ass that they all have to deal with and that they all don't like. Who takes animal cases like way too seriously. So like and like the movie sort of seems to indicate that this person is reasonably cognizant, like they're not totally insane. So why would it just seems like a bad, poorly thought out plan that you've thought about for 7 years.
I mean, the answer to that, the
If a
true
wizard did
answer,
it.
you're not supposed to think about it. It's a comedy.
I mean, sure, but when you're trying not to think about the Mr. Winky in the room, it's all you think about. And also, I do a show on the internet where I pick apart movies. It's kind of my bit.
I know. I'm just saying, for the standard moviegoer.
I didn't get to watch the second one. I was gonna watch the second one, but I'm like, yeah, I can see why. But it's funny because as we will go on, we will find out more and more that Jim Carrey very much resents this guy. Like this is the guy that went on to do The Mask, Dumb and Dumber. Like this version of Jim Carrey would go on to resent for the rest of his career. And I will demonstrate that for you today, Your Honor. That's Ace Ventura. I tried to as we get into this, I tried to I tried to sort of represent as much of his career as a whole. So I'm gonna try to do this like not necessarily in chronological order per se, but in sort of like beginning to end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I also tried to sample as much of his career as I could. Will Smith has been in a lot of things.
Jim Carrey's been in a lot of
I did not have the time to watch every single one of his movies. But I tried to sample as much as I could. So the first one was kind of sampling, that romantic comedy portion of his career.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of the more serious, for lack of a better word. It's I Am Legend.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if drama, I guess. I don't know what you would want to classify
thriller?
This as.
Technically, I think it's a horror movie.
Thriller, horror. But this one, basically, to summarize the plot very loosely, woman thinks she cures cancer. Woman essentially kills off 95% of the planet. Will Smith goes crazy and spends the movie trying to create a cure.
Will Smith kills a dog. It's very upsetting.
Will Smith is okay in this movie. If you want to see Will Smith play a crazy person, this is the movie for you.
This is definitely the one. What the heck are you doing out here, Jerry? Get out of here, Jerry.
It's a little dry for me. A little slow. but when it picks up, it picks up,
The
and the character work is very strong.
the
I believe he's crazy.
the original ending to the book is way better.
Go on.
It ends where it turns out that the vampire the infected, because I don't think they're vampire people in the original book, but it basically turns out that they have their own society and they're basically humans, and that he's basically been this like crazy psychopath killer who's been killing them at night, and it turns out like he's the bad guy basically, and then title from the book comes from like I am legend, like I am the thing that goes bump in the night.
Oh, interesting. That's very different than what we got.
It's much more interesting.
Also, I never would have. Now that you've said vampire, certain characteristics make way more sense. I never would have picked up on that.
Yeah, they're supposed to be vampire things.
Just based on their visuals and what they look like, I never would have picked up on that.
Zombie vampires.
Yeah, I definitely attributed more zombie than vampire, but that's interesting. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one because, quite frankly, not a lot happens in it.
Not
It's more
really.
about like
Vibes.
watching the vibes and the character work and so on. In that regard, it's a good, like, it's good, but in terms of what a movie where things actually happen, it's a little dry for me.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was all right. I was like, it's all right.
It's fine. That's kind of going to be a lot of my opinions here are like, I don't dislike them.
Yeah. I mean, I liked almost all of mine.
I don't dislike them. Like, I don't really have much bad to say about it. I do some of these, but anyways, that's I Am Legend.
My next one. So Jim Carrey, he goes through a period in maybe the late 90s to early 2000s where he's got to prove that he's still got it. So he's got, or you know what, we'll do live, we'll swap this. No, I think we will. So in I say around 2003, 2002, he's done a few dramas and they're not doing terribly well. So he's got to prove that he can still be a comedy leading man and make a ton of money. So he does a little movie called Bruce Almighty.
I like that movie.
I do enjoy that movie. It's one of those ones where you can't think about it too much, because if you think about it too much, it stops making sense. You're like, wait, what? God just decides this one guy needs this weird and specific lesson, so he gives him his powers for a week. Although there are some really funny little Easter eggs that I totally didn't like. The fact that
God's tired of his shit, Justin.
The fact that the company is called Omnipresence. It's funny.
Omnipotent.
Omnipresence.
Yeah, no, because he's omnipotent.
He's omnipresent, not
omnipotent.
Omnipresent is different.
Anyways,
but yeah, it's omnipresence as an omnipresent. And then I like the bit at the end where they pull down his poster and it's like all toppling of false gods. I enjoyed that.
I never thought of that. That's funny.
Right? Yeah, I was like, oh, that's clever. That's really clever. It's like it's his apocalypse. He's just this obnoxious jerk at the beginning of the movie. I've discovered I enjoy Jim Carrey more when he's
human.
More like a real person. He very much he desperately he was so ashamed of being the Ace Ventura Dumb and Dumber guy that he struggled to do this. Like, I'm just a normal guy that has extraordinary circumstances happen to me without being silly. This one also repairs him with, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, but it repairs him with the guy who made Liar Liar, which Tom Shadyac, which
interesting.
These movies are remarkably similar in a lot of ways. Those movies are remarkably similar in a lot of ways. But no, I like him when he's ironically, despite the fact that he's God, is like more subdued than he is in some of these. It's way more interesting. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun movie. They should have done. I'm surprised. The thing with Jim Carrey movies is they always wait too long to make sequels. And I get that Evan Almighty wasn't like great. It's also that although the ending of this movie kind of implies that at least in my opinion, it implies that Bruce used his god because he still technically had god powers when he gives the job to Evan at the end. That's before he gives up God's powers. So I think technically maybe the implication there is that he when he gave up the job, he made Evan less of a prick.
I don't know. To me, that's you just knowing that there's a sequel and trying to make an excuse for yourself to believe why he could become the person that he is.
In the
The
second one,
simple answer, yeah, the simple answer is that life goes on and maybe he just learned to be a better person.
well, yes and no. The framing of the scene itself, he definitely is like legitimately surprised. So I think perhaps
Yeah.
yeah.
So one could just say that it's not necessarily that because Bruce gave him his god powers, but Bruce showed this humble moment of being the bigger person,
No, no,
and
no.
that inspired
I'm
Evan
not
to be
saying. I'm
a
not
better
saying that. I'm
person.
not saying that God. I'm saying that he
You're
used
saying
his
Bruce used his god powers on him. I'm saying I don't think he did.
to influence better behavior. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that the movie does kind of imply that he does.
I don't agree with that.
Um, in the scene again in there in the micro expressions in his face.
Yeah,
It's
no, I don't
it's
agree with that.
I at least yeah again that's what that's what's implied. Um,
Again, no, I don't think so. But that's cool. We can agree to disagree on that one.
um yeah. I don't know. That's how I read the scene. Cause yeah, that's how I read this. But then again, that I might be misplacing it. It might be after. It might be after he gave up the powers. But I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, yeah. Anytime I think of God in my head now, it's always gonna be Morgan Freeman because of that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. I like that's one of the things I like about that movie.
Um,
Is there anything else you have to say about Bruce Almighty?
no, no.
Um, so following the thread of I Am Legend with Will Smith's path here, through my story of Will Smith, um, we have a more serious one, drama. I guess I would call this one. Um,
Drama.
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh yeah. See, I've heard that movie is
Um,
almost like not like it's one of those ones where it's so sad it's almost over the top.
so I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember the details of this one faded on my mind a little
Does
bit
he
as I
die
stepped
in the
away from
end?
it. No, from what I remember, it's a happy ending. Um, in fact, I'm gonna actually just open up the Wikipedia for this one just to refresh myself. But it's cute. It's also the first time that we see Jaden Smith, his son, is actually in this, playing his son,
Yes, yes, he is.
which I think is a nice touch. Um, and it's just about this man's life and the struggles that he goes through, and how life is hard for him. And at one point, him and his son are living in a homeless shelter, just scraping by while he's trying to do this internship. Um, to try and get a job at this stockbroker trader. And it starts off with him selling these uh telescopes, I think they're supposed to be. Um, and his wife leaves him at one point, and she's awful. She's awful. She's awful. It needed to be said 3 times. Um,
Yeah.
and you really get to see Will Smith
Doing
be
acting.
serious, being serious in this one. And I still argue that in this one he still feels like Will Smith, but if Will Smith was being not trying to be funny, if you get what I mean.
I do.
Um and yeah, the way that it ends, I've got it here, is basically the internship ends and he gets the job and he has the happy ending. And then they have an epilogue, like blurb word thing on the screen which says that, because this is based on a real person.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
it says Gardner went on to form his own multi-million dollar brokerage firm, and then he sold a minority stake in the brokerage firm for a multi-million dollar deal. So it's like his pursuit of happiness ultimately paid off because
He made
he
the
got
money.
happiness.
He got the muns.
Um, And
Demands.
um, yeah, it's another example of it's fine. It's fine. A lot of it's sad, but it pays off. He gets the happy ending.
Yeah, yeah. So, is that it? That's all I got?
That's yeah, yeah.
So, okay. So Jim Carrey, obviously, he goes through a bit of he's got to do his movies where he's a dad. I call him dad movies, and that's also Tom Shadyac. I'm gonna mispronounce his name, and Liar Liar. So the reason why I could tell that they're both made by the same guy, number one, is they both end where the credits are the blooper reel. You know, how, like both
Oh
movies,
yeah.
yeah. Which I can still quote so many of them. My favorite one is the one where they're in the courtroom. Overactor, huge. Um,
in liar
prenuptial
liar
agreement.
liar liar mama.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or
And then in the blooper, he just kisses her as the door is shut and they're
yeah.
laughing. So funny.
My thing with that one is that the movie really needs you to understand at the beginning that he's a liar, but like a lot of what he
Well, I mean,
says,
he is a lawyer.
yeah, but a lot of what he says are like not real, not really lies so much as like,
White lies.
well, they're not even white lies. They're like, yeah, like the girl walks up and is like, it has the bad haircut. Like, yeah, any regular person isn't gonna be like, my God, that looks fucking atrocious. Like, obviously, you're gonna be like, it
Right.
looks
Right. But Justin, the point is that we're lying to make her feel better. It's
right.
still a lie by the strictest definition of what a lie is, which and that's the thing is, and that's why it works in this movie is because it's like the kid's what five,
Yeah, 5. Yeah,
because the kid is 5. The wish is a 5-year-old's interpretation of
I
lying,
know. It's
not a
black and white.
34-year-old. It's black and white. What he is doing is lying. It's adult lying, but it's lying.
But what I'm saying
That's
is,
why it works.
the movie is not giving you a 5-year-old's interpretation of it. It's giving you the adult's interpret, and it's framing it amongst like the weird, that's not really a lie kind of lies, to like it's equating
But
them
again,
to,
from a 5-year-old's
but they're
perspective,
not from a
it's all the
5-year-old's
same.
perspective. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
That's the
it
point I'm
is,
trying to
because
make.
that's who made the wish.
No, but what I'm saying is the movie itself is framing these early lies in the early beginning parts of the movie as equal to when he pulls up, and he's also a bad liar. Like, dude, pick a more believable lie. Like when he shows up at the beginning of the movie to meet the son, and he's like late, and the way he's like, oh, I ran out of gas on the way here. He's like, bro, just say you got stuck in traffic. You'd still be lying, but at least it'd be a believable lie at that point. Like it tries to frame those lies as the same as the like, yeah, obviously you're not gonna make fun of the guy to his face. That's not really technically a lie. Like, and those scenes are not like.
Again, from a 5-year-old's
But no,
perspective,
but you're not.
it is.
No, but you're not listening. It's not from a 5-year-old's perspective.
Yes,
Like,
it is, Justin. That's who makes the wish. That's why the wish is interpreted that way.
no, but
Yes, we're seeing it from an adult's perspective,
No.
and that's what makes it clever.
no. What I'm saying is though, the scenes I'm talking about are prior to the introduction of the son. They're at the beginning of the movie, and they're trying to equate these lies in terms of attributing them to his character as the same as the actual lie. Like, yeah, when he says to his son, "Oh, I'm going to show up," and he doesn't, that is a lie. That's bad. Yeah, I absolutely do not blame I'm not blaming the son for having a naive understanding of his father. He has a correct assertion of his father. His father's a lie. What I'm saying is, in film language, the film is trying to present lies that aren't lies as lies in order to make him seem like a bad guy, is what I'm saying.
I mean, in the beginning, he is a bad guy, though.
Yes, but
That's the thing and yes, that is why they're doing that, is because in filmmaking language, you have a set amount of time. You have to establish right off the bat that he's a bad person.
Right, but what I'm saying is the lies that he's saying they're not bad lies. Like it's casting a
well, that because that then sets up later on when he tries to do those white lies, as we would refer to them, he can't do those. Like, that's why they have those there, is to set that up later on.
But my point is that they're not that bad. Like they're perfectly reasonable. Like, but
yes, that's kind of the point.
Yes, but again, the movie is trying. Like I guess I'm saying he needed to be more cartoonishly of a liar for a lot of this to be more effective for me. If I'm being critical, this is me being critical.
I disagree.
There like a lot of the lies he says early on, like they're not lies. They're just not lies.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's why when he then goes back later and can't do it, that's why they have those there, is to demonstrate, oh, it's not just the egregiously bad lies that he can't do. It's the little white lies that make a person feel better.
I understand
too.
that, but
I don't. Those have to be there, Justin.
But what I'm saying is if the intent is to present him as a smarmy liar, you're not, because what he's saying in the beginning of this movie, and I'm not talking once the son gets introduced, and I'm not talking.
It still presents him as a smarmy liar. He's telling people what they want to hear.
But he's not telling people what they want to
But he
hear.
is. He's saying your haircut looks nice. Her haircut does not look nice.
No, he doesn't say that the haircut looks nice.
I'm just saying as an example.
Right, but like all the lies that the movie presents as being
lies,
bad. They're not lies. They're not lies on the same level of him saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be there when I'm not." That's my point is.
But again, that's the point.
But I feel like you're not listening or you're not understanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the movie wants to present lies.
I don't understand what you're saying, because you're watching a movie where it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Yes, I don't understand where your complaint here is, and it's frustrating me.
My complaint is that the lies that they're presenting early in the movie, that they're not lies. He's not a liar. Like not to.
That's the point.
But it's not the point. The point is they want you to think. They want you to think
the point is that they're setting up that not all lies are bad. Not all lies are created equal. That's why those are there. So that when later in the movie, when he can't lie at all, it's to emphasize that not all lies are created equal. That's why those are there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it wasn't effective for me. Is what I'm saying. Not this time around. It wasn't. I'm like. Yeah,
I don't.
Maybe it's because I'm because what he's saying, he's just a functional adult. Because to me,
yes, that's the point.
But it's not the point. The point is he's supposed to point. No, the point is he's supposed to be this cartoonish, over the top liar. And
yes, but it's supposed to be a thing where it's mixed in. Justin, the white lies and the bad lies are mixed in, and he has stopped seeing the line between the two. But that's the point.
Yeah, it's not.
He sees it all as the same thing.
But again. That's not how it's. I think you're remembering this movie differently, because that's not how it's presented. He's being presented as though you're right. It wants to pretend that it's presenting it to you that way, or it wants you to think he's a certain kind of like to me. They're like, oh, he's the kind of guy who's willing to perjure himself in court. Like, yes, that's like. I guess what I'm saying is his lies needed to be bigger for. So then when he tries to
I don't agree,
because the thing is, a lot of what he's saying at the beginning, it wants to be, oh, he can't say regular or small lies, but he doesn't really say lies that are that big in the beginning of the movie to where it contrasting to him not being able to say any lies is really that effective. Like, again, a lot of the lies, like there's a small scene at the beginning of the movie where he's interacting around adults as though they were adults, and what at that point. They're not really that bad of lies, is my point. So like,
yeah, that's the point.
But I feel like you're not listening to me because you're getting defensive about a movie you like, that you clearly haven't seen in a while. Because what I'm saying is like, there's a lot of times where like, yeah, like a lot of the ways he interacts with his staff, the movie is like, oh, he's saying this really awful thing to them, this awful big awful lie. It's trying to pretend that like harmless like everyday lies are on the same level as when he shows up and he's like, oh, I ran out of gas. Like that that's a useless lie. Like, it's pretending like they're both the same, but they're not. Like, being nice to your staff and being polite to people and like is not the same.
We're just gonna keep going around and round in circles on this, man.
Yes, but you're not. Let me finish my thought. That to me, it's not the same thing. So like, it's just, yeah, that was my main thing this time, where it was like, oh, I remember this character being way worse than he is. I'm like, oh no, he's not. I guess maybe you're right. Maybe because I'm an adult now, I'm like, he's not really doing. Yeah. Also, I
He's a bad,
appreciated.
he's a bad dad, and that's really the worst part of his character.
Yeah, that's the
Is the
worst part of his
thing.
character. Am I? And
Is what you're trying to say, and what I'm
yeah,
trying to say is that's the point. This movie is essentially supposed to be from the perspective of a 5-year-old.
but it's
That's
that's.
what this movie is.
I know, but I guess
The
maybe
wish is
maybe.
made. The wish is made by a 5-year-old, so all the consequences that come from it in this movie, yes, the lies aren't that bad. That's the point. That's
Right.
the point. Full stop. And there's nothing more. This movie doesn't have any deeper layer than that. That's the point. And
But
that either works for you, or, as clearly is the case for you, it doesn't work for you because you're an adult and you can't put yourself back in that mind frame of the 5-year-old who's being lied to.
because
That's the
but
point.
my point though is that's not what this movie is. This movie is not told from the perspective of a 5-year-old. It's not told from the kid's perspective. It's told from Fletcher's perspective, right? And so that is one
Right,
thing.
but
Well, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me
but
finish.
the wish
Let me
is made
finish.
by a
Let me finish.
5-year-old.
Let me finish. Yes, but the movie is not told from the perspective of a
Doesn't
5-year-old.
matter.
But that does matter.
No, it
So
doesn't.
I do appreciate that the movie never explains anything. Like that, I appreciate. It never explains the magic. It never, because it doesn't need to. That's not the point. But what I'm saying is yeah, in order for the him getting punished for the little stuff, I don't know. I think it would have been, he needed to be smarmier, I think, in my opinion.
I think it works just
So
fine
that
how it
way,
is.
so then it contrasts better to when he's with the son. It comes across as more fake, because and then that way at the end when he has the lesson of he needs to be, because they're like, oh, there's this
They
whole
can't
point.
make him. They can't make him smarmier because he has to be redeemable. If he's too smarmy, he can't be. Not. No, I,
I don't
I
know.
think it, I think it's a classic for a reason.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it's wasn't. Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was funny. It certainly didn't age as badly as Ace Ventura did. That's for sure.
It's
Yeah,
it's a fun family movie.
it is a
That's my
fun
thing.
family movie where you cringe. I mean, there's nothing. The most realistic bit in the movie was when the boyfriend is like doing the claw. It's like, dude,
Like
stop,
this movie comes from the
stop.
same time period, and this is maybe a weird comparison, but it comes from the same like. It gives me real Jingle All the Way vibes.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's Jim Carrey's a dad. It's a dad movie.
Like
He's a
it's just a
dad.
dad movie. There's so many of them at that time,
About your
and
shitty
and
divorced
so
dad who somehow
and
gets the
and
girl
and
at the
so,
end.
and so and so I don't know. Maybe it's just a thing where I have my own experiences of life, and maybe I just attribute this movie to certain individuals that I grew up with.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Maybe that influences my thoughts and feelings towards it. Who can say? This isn't a therapy
Uh,
podcast. We're not going to deep dive into our deep emotional trauma here. Is that all you have to say about this movie, Justin?
it also clearly takes place pre 9/11.
Oh yeah, with how easy it is for him to airport shenanigans.
Get through the airport security pull airport shenanigans at the end. I was like, I didn't even bother. I'm like, I think this movie came out in 1999. It must have come out pre 9/11.
I would not be shocked. No.
Yeah, that's it.
Um.
That
So
is liar, liar.
my next one, we step out of Will Smith's serious acting drama and move into action. I guess I would call them intrigue. I don't know. It's focus. Um,
That's a
Action.
technically.
What would you call that?
I think it's technically a romance, isn't it? Because don't they get together in the end?
Okay, I suppose maybe I don't know.
Drama,
Yeah, drama. I don't know. Anyways, focus.
thriller.
You've talked about it from the Margot Robbie side. I watched it from the Will Smith side. It's
Creepy.
okay.
I don't like them together. I really don't. I
Here's
stand
what I'll
by
say.
that.
I'm even ignoring that. I'm just like from a film perspective on the whole. Um, the, I
I'm a big fan of
it's
sleight of
it's
hand, so anytime anything involves sleight of hand, I'm always gonna
it's
like it.
it was one of the bottom of the list ones for me.
As someone who appreciates that part, that like scam and all that sort of stuff, like I
Yeah,
I don't remember what my specific thoughts were on that movie, but I did
appre-
appreciate that stuff. That was fun.
I appreciate that stuff. Much like your thoughts, I don't see Margot Robbie and Will Smith together. He's like 10 years older than her.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. It's weird.
like
They have no
like
chemistry. That's all I remember about that movie. Is they have no
she's
chemistry.
like she's like your age,
Yep.
and so he's like 50 something, and the thought
Pretty sure he's almost 60.
I don't even know. Hold on, let's find out. Um, and so the thought of them together.
I know I googled
out.
it. I know I googled it, and it's old enough to be weird.
Will Smith age? He's 56.
Yeah, she's 34.
He's 56 and she's 34. That's like 20 years apart.
Yeah.
Which, granted, in my life, I've known individuals that had that spread.
Yeah.
Personally,
But just in this case,
so,
it just didn't. I don't know. They had like nothing.
I just don't see the chemistry there.
Honestly, I don't remember if I liked this movie or not. I think I did.
And
I thought it was all right.
The movie, like the scams and it's dry is the word I would use.
Yeah.
Like dry. It's a lot of talking. And like the scenes where they're doing stuff, I don't care enough about the characters to care.
Fair enough.
Is I guess kind of what I would say. I don't have a lot to say about this one.
If you want to know what I thought, go back and watch the episode where I talked to. Go back to the last pick an actress where I talked about it because I don't honestly remember what I said.
It's not my least favorite of the movies that I watched, but it's down there.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. So my next one, Jim Carrey. He's gone over the years through several identity crises, I would say. And there was a point where he was like, I need to go get back to my roots. I need to do comedies. I need to do a big Farley Brothers R-rated comedy in Me, Myself, and Irene. And
yes.
I don't have a ton to say about this other than it was like one of the first R-rated comedies I ever watched. I remember it being kind of a shock at the time because I mean I knew Jim Carrey from relatively family-friendly stuff, what I considered to be relatively family-friendly stuff. Rewatching Ace Ventura, that movie is surprisingly dirty. It gets away with quite a lot for a PG-13 movie. But for those of you who've not seen Me, Myself, and Irene, the very basic plot of it is
split personality.
Jim Carrey plays a cop who gets cheated on by his girlfriend, which causes him to causes him to repress all of his rage and emotion, and that bursts out of him in the form of Hank, an alternate personality. And he inadvertently winds up escorting a young woman back to another state where she's going to be arrested. And yeah, it's the road trip movie, and there's split personality shenanigans, and Jim Carrey swears a lot, and Hank is kind of fun. He's kind of a fun character. There's a lot of really fun scenes of him just fucking with people. What was my thing? Oh, the only thing I didn't really care for is his sons, who like it's like
I wasn't gonna say it, but
it's like my thing is it's one joke, and the joke is they're black guys and they're saying stereotypical ghetto black stuff, but they're also
even though they were raised by the whitest man in America.
Yeah, because they grew up watching HBO comedy Richard Pryor specials, and they're massive stereotypes. But the joke is that they're stereotypes who say smart shit.
But yeah, contrary to what the stereotype would actually be.
Yeah, so they're all saying hyper intelligent, like highly scientific formulas and stuff. But like it's all with the air of like stereotypical black guy speak. I ghetto speak. I don't know what the word is. I immediately apologize. Don't cancel me. And it's just it gets really old, and it's I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's gonna be like get in the comments like Justin. Actually, that those characters are hilarious, and you're an idiot. But I don't know. It got so old so fast.
I just for me, the reason why I'm not fond of those characters is because I feel in a movie that otherwise, for what it is, holds up decently well, they age it.
I don't disagree with that, yeah. Especially considering I'm pretty sure Anthony Anderson has a gold tooth. Like, It feels slightly racist. I don't know. Maybe that's
It
just me
just,
being
yeah.
like,
Maybe I'm being a little pearl clutchy. I don't know,
yeah, maybe.
but
I don't know.
it feels like I watched that and I'm like, it's okay. I can watch this. I have a black friend.
Yeah, I have a
It's
black
okay.
friend. Yeah, my.
It gives me those kind of vibes.
Also, I
Like you
love the
should feel
bit.
ashamed for watching it.
The bit where he beats up the cow, and then at the ending, the post credits, it turns out the cow is okay. The cow's okay, everybody. Cow's okay. Don't even worry. The cow's fine. Just trying to think of the bit where he gets cotton mouth. I always thought that was like a makeup effect, but no, he can actually do that. That's how he does Fire Marshal Bill.
Interesting.
Yeah, the whole thing with this one is that it's a Farley Brothers movie, so it's gross and weird and
Over the top is
over
the
the
word I would use.
top.
Like it, like they were like, you know what, Jim, just do whatever you want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just you have no reins. Just go ham wild.
Right? Yeah, it's always funny because like one of these later on, I read it and it's always like Jim Carrey is back in form. We're not talking about Sonic today because we're gonna do a Sonic special later on. But probably in December when Sonic 3 comes out. But yeah, every review for his movies is always Jim Carrey is always like is act surprised that he's good in a thing. It's kind of funny. This thing I don't think was received terribly well, but that's it. That's me, myself, and Irene.
So I have one more and then a half one.
I got two.
So at your recommendation, I watched Ali.
Ali.
And
I quite like that movie actually.
I didn't. I found it very boring. Very boring.
Really, because
very boring.
I could hear you. I could hear you just saying random Muhammad Ali lines to yourself last night.
I mean, yeah, because I like Muhammad Ali, and I know him. He's I'm familiar with. He's a person, and it's just I don't know. I'm sure it's accurate. I'm sure it's accurate to what happened in his life, but I don't really how to word this. I care about him in the ring. I don't really. What happened to him outside of the ring doesn't interest me.
I know, but a lot of interesting stuff happened to him outside the ring.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean that's not inaccurate.
He's a hard guy to talk about without bringing in his relationship to race relations.
I don't know. Maybe I wasn't in the right headspace for it last night.
It's
just
damn good impression though. Like the performance is good.
So this is a compliment sandwich here, where I didn't start with the compliment, and I'm just going to do that now. I guess it's a compliment meal where you had the one course of me being bad, and now you have the other courses of positive that I'm going to bring in. Will Smith, this is the least Will Smith that Will Smith has ever been, and that's the highest compliment that I can give to a person who 80% of the time is just Will Smith.
That's why when you're like he's always Will Smith, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I'd say that.
A lot of the times he is.
That's why I compared him to The Rock, where I'm like, he's like The Rock, where like 90% of the time he's just The Rock.
This is one of the few times where he wasn't, and he does a very good job. And when he does the boxing scenes, like I believe that he was actually doing those scenes.
My thing is that Muhammad Ali was kind of a rapper in terms of his
the rapping that he does,
in terms of his rhythm and he was a very talented fighter.
So
I do recall thinking the movie's kind of dry.
In terms of the performances that are done in this movie, and not just him, but like the guy who plays George Foreman and the rest.
Also, when they are doing boxing, I do recall the boxing sequences being staged, like at least interestingly.
Yeah, and that's where I say that's the stuff that I liked. I like the stuff that focuses more on the boxing stuff, but like you get to the part where it's like he's refusing to go to the war and he's doing all this other stuff outside, and it's like I'm not super into that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like to me, that feels like it feels like two movies that are at odds with each other. It feels like they're like part of this movie wants to be about Muhammad Ali, the boxer, and the stuff that he went through to do boxing, and it's all about like his career in the ring. And then there's a separate movie which is about him, the man.
Yeah.
Like him, the man, and all the things that he went through outside of the ring, and like all the drama and all that. And it feels like this movie is at odds with itself.
Yeah, fair enough.
Where it's like it doesn't know what it wants to focus on, and because it's not focusing on either, to me, it does a disservice to it as a whole.
But also, aren't you glad you watched it? Because yeah, now you're like, you know what? He's not all one thing.
I do, yeah. From a performance perspective, absolutely. It was refreshing in that regard, but just from a movie making and story perspective, that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah.
It would be like if you had a movie where I'm trying to think of a good comparison about the Beatles, for example, where like 20 to 30% of it is about the movie or is about the music with John, and then the rest of it is about Yoko Ono and his relationship.
I mean, at that point, it would just be a. I mean, to be fair, I also think that stuff would be interesting, but at that point, it would just be a John Lennon movie.
But sorry, that's who I mean. But you get like that's kind of the comparison that I give, where it's like
if you went up to what you're saying is maybe a better analogy, or the analogy you're looking for is if you went to a Beatles movie and instead of 80% of it being about the Beatles, 10% is about the Beatles and the other 90% is John Lennon and Yoko Ono's relationship.
Yeah,
is that maybe the analogy you're looking for?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's
fair enough.
kind of
fair enough.
That's what I feel about this movie.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I wanted more of his boxing career because that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the movie, as I recall, does sort of begin. He's already kind of more or less established as a fighter, I think.
Yeah. Like it literally, the first 20 minutes is him in a fight.
What's interesting is like, for me with that movie and Muhammad Ali generally, when I watch that movie, obviously, when I watch any movie based on real people, I need to know about the real people. It's just compulsion for me.
An example
That's going to come up today, in fact.
There's a point where he's like, I want to be called Muhammad Ali, and I didn't know that he never was.
Right, yeah, and I know. That's the thing, where he was Cassius Clay for quite a while during his initial boxing career.
Yeah, so I would have liked the beginning part of the movie to be about that.
Yeah, but and Cassius Clay starting.
Yeah. And then that's where I say this movie feels like it's at odds with itself.
But also, to be fair,
it wants to be about the out of the ring stuff, but it's not confident enough in itself that it thinks it would.
Yeah, it thinks people are showing
succeed.
up
for the boxing.
Yeah, for the boxing stuff. But it wants to be about the stuff in the 70s where he didn't box for a long time. Like that's the thing, is the movie kind of does a disservice in like the problem with movies is obviously you're filming them over the course of several months and they take place over the course of several years. But I think when he got his licensing taken away, he wasn't allowed to box. I think that was I don't want to say 10 because that feels too high. But I think
it was supposed to be a good couple of years because then in the movie when he then comes back to it's supposed to be a big deal that he's coming back to boxing, and they're all like, well, you want to fight with the champion, but you haven't been boxing in however many years.
That was a big deal in real life, and there's a lot of people who say that that basically killed his career, because he had that 5 however many year hiatus. He wasn't the same fighter when he came back. And there's lots of people who speculate, what would have happened had he not had his suspension? He would have had a completely different career.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
But that's the stuff that you're right. That's the stuff that interests me.
Yeah, no, that's where I say.
But also, I did this time because I became more interested because my perspective on life is, as we've pointed out, changed. I did find the stuff with Malcolm X. That stuff was interesting to me.
Yeah, and see,
no, fair enough. Hey,
I wanted the boxing movie, and I got the I got the confused jumble movie.
Yeah.
That's my ultimate summation, and because I feel it makes me sound smart, and and not just a dickhead. This movie is confused.
To be fair, yeah, you didn't really go for Will Smith's dramatic part of his resume.
I mean, I did. I got The Pursuit of Happiness.
That is true. I keep forgetting about The Pursuit of Happiness. Even though we literally talked about it.
That's Ali.
All right. So for me, my next one is Jordan. I need to confess something to you right now. The Jim Carrey parts of this episode are going to become a YouTube video that I'm probably going to entitle "Jim Carrey, You Used to Be Cool."
Jim Carrey, what happened to you? You used to.
Cool. I like that better. Jim Carrey, what happened to you? You used to be cool. But this section, I'm calling the weird dramatic stuff, or Jim Carrey wants an Oscar. Boy, howdy did Jim Carrey want an Oscar. He wanted an Oscar so badly. And he just
I mean, either he wanted an Oscar or his manager told him he needed to win an Oscar.
No, I think the thing about Jim Carrey is he's a deeply, and I see the thing I discovered through these movies. He said every movie he made, it was at a particular point in his life. It represents a particular feeling he had at that moment. And a lot of his feelings, a lot of his dialogue in a lot of his movies are similar. He reminds me a lot of me. And when I found out that he was like massively depressed,
that's upsetting.
Minus the end point, which we're going to talk about. But otherwise,
you don't know. You haven't gotten to your end point. You have no idea.
I might turn into a weird conspiracy.
You might go crazy.
But my next one is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
That's an interesting one.
Which he made, or he did when he was going through a really nasty breakup. And there's a line of dialogue in there where he's like, why do I always fall for the women who say the first nice thing to me? And I was like, oof, I felt that. But for those of you who have never seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you should. It's a good movie. But no, it's about
it's been a while. It's been a while.
It's about a couple. It's been a while. It's about a couple.
It's been a while.
Played by Kate Winslet and Jim Carrey, called Clementine, and his name is Joel. And she is effectively a manic pixie dream girl, complete with multicolored hair and weird ideas of monogamy and being in a relationship. And he runs into her accidentally and discovers that she has gotten a procedure that has effectively deleted all of his memories, all of her memories of their relationship. All of the dates, all of the every. So far as she knows, she's never dated him. He finds this out and gets upset and never met him. He finds this out, gets upset, and opts to have the same procedure done on him. And the movie is basically him re-going through his memories as they're slowly erased. While we see the people who are doing this to him. Spoiler alert, by the way, for this 20-year-old movie. But you find out that Elijah Wood is there, and he has been using all of Joel's journals and information and basically all of his words, like right down to identically the same words, to her, and using it to seduce her and date her. Clementine, yeah. And it's really gaslighting her. So it's fucking with her brain. And it's funny because the movie sort of present, like, there's one guy early on in the movie where the guy has had it done like 5. First of all, this procedure's fucked. Like, let's just get that out of the way right now. This procedure is a fucked up thing. Like, no, you can't just avoid your trauma.
Like there would be some real people standing out, and just looking at how our world works and going off of that, it feels like you would have some real mobs standing outside protesting this procedure.
It reminds me of, and this is going to be kind of a divergent, so just stick with me on it. There's a show called, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, I doubt it, but it's called Severance. And the plot of it is that Adam Scott, does that name ring any bells?
Kylo Ren.
No, that's it's not Adam Scott. Adam Scott, who do you know Adam Scott from?
Boy Meets World?
Yes, he absolutely was on Boy Meets World. He was Griff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was also on to bring up something I've been watching recently that I'm surprised didn't kick in. He was on The Good Place.
He was on The Good Place. Yes. He basically has volunteer has he works for this company, and he has volunteered to have his consciousness split into the version of him that works and the version of him that's at home. And they're two different people, and they're unaware of what the other does. And the one who's working, the whole bit is he didn't consent to this. He didn't consent to work. He didn't make any choices.
This sounds familiar.
I've probably told you about it before.
I think you've told me about this.
It's quite a very good show, but that's what this reminds me of the present day. There's a bit at the end where basically eventually you find out that one of the staff, played by Kirsten Dunst, has been having an affair with the doctor who's created this procedure, and he's like, oh, you insisted that you have the procedure done, and she basically sends all the files to everybody, and you find out that he it's one of those, like, she's like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to have this procedure, and he goes, we talked about this, in that tone that's like he's the one who wanted to do it, not her.
There's absolutely no real world comparisons that could be made there. No. Certainly none that we're going to touch on here, because that is a big ball of yarn.
But there's a whole point at the end where they're like listening to this and they're like, oh, I would never do that. Oh, I would never do that. And it's like, yeah, man, that version of you is now dead. The version of you that has that memory is now like spiritually dead in a sense. And in this version of you can't consent to that. You're now a new version of you, and you didn't consent to losing those memories. So that's not, to me, that's morally, there's some sort of moral, I don't know if it's morally wrong, but it certainly feels morally wrong. And I'm not even mentioning, like,
what's funny is very much, this makes me think, funny enough, this makes me think of The Good Place, because they go through like 800 versions of themselves in that show. And so there's a point where current Chidi is like, morally there's the question of like, a version of Chidi and you fell in love, but it's not me, because that version of me ceased to exist. And it's exactly what you're describing.
Exactly the same, right? And not even mentioning the fact that Joel didn't consent. Like, if I know it's like her body, but also, I don't know. It just feels like that he, like, it feels wrong to do that to him. I know it's not. I guess the argument could be made it's not about him, but there's just something that feels wrong about that. You know what I mean?
About deleting him from her mind.
Yeah.
I mean, but the argument is that it's her mind. It's her right to delete him from her. It's the equivalent. This in their world, this would be. I'm going to play devil's advocate. It's like she just deleted you from her phone.
I guess I could see that argument. But my other thing with this is they do this thing of like he's interacting with a version of Clementine the whole movie. And she's being like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, I mean, blah, 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 blah. And it seems like she's also going through an arc, but she's not really, because that's not really her. It's his imagination of her. So like my one tweak I would maybe make to this, and I don't know how you would do it, and it's only a small one. I would have it where they're having their memories deleted together. That way.
Interesting. That way the version in the mind is actually her.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, a lot of their interactions are kind of meaningless.
If you did that, then you could also, from a metaphor standpoint, have it essentially be like it's a divorce procedure. You have to divorce from each other and delete each other from each other's mind.
Yeah.
And then that way you could have a final scene where they're hitting the end of everything be deleted, and like you allude to the fact that like there's always some small part of them that survives. Exactly. And that's why in the real world they meet each other again, they fall in love each other again, and it's this big metaphor of, oh, when you're meant to be, and you fall in love. Exactly. And yada yada yada.
And also, what's his face? Elijah Wood's character is scum. He's fucking scum.
Oh yeah,
like the guy.
So is the doctor.
So is the doctor, and it's weird because the movie kind of implies that, kind of hints that maybe because Mark Ruffalo is also in this movie, and they hint that he might also have done the same thing to create. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, that's Mark Ruffalo. What the fuck? It tries to be like he didn't know, but it sort of implies that maybe he did know. And it's like, there's no, in my opinion, ethical version of this. There's no ethical way to do this to somebody.
No, there's absolutely not.
Like, it doesn't matter how much you consent to it, how much you agree to it. It just doesn't feel like there's, Yeah, it's like the temptation is always going to be there to use this information against them.
I also just feel like that's kind of the point, is that it's not ethical.
I guess maybe that is the point, because at the end of it, they're like, fucking, and it kind of whole thing kind of falls apart at the end. So maybe you're right. Maybe that is. This is where I will agree with you and say maybe that is the point of it ultimately. Also, it's got a weird scene where Jim Carrey. Yeah, some of the humiliation scenes were weird. Very strange. It's a visually interesting movie. There's some really fun stuff to do with angles.
It's one where it's like it's this one, I will say it's been a long while since I've seen this one, but from what I remember, I respect it because it takes chances.
Yeah, oh yeah, this is very much him being like this is where he, like I say, this is where he really wants to. And he, to be fair, he's well acclaimed for his performance in this movie. He is human in this movie, and I think that's what makes this movie really reminds me of Black Mirror in a lot of ways. But it has a sci-fi bent to it. But he's the most human I think he's ever, at least in the movies I saw this week, that he ever is. The most like a regular person. Like I think I discovered I enjoy Jim Carrey when he's a regular person and he's not just a big cartoon character now more than I do the cartoon character stuff. As much as I love the cartoon character stuff.
I think it depends on what I'm in the mood for.
But also, I'm gonna make the point later that he maybe had perhaps pushed it too far. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed. Like I say, I love the bits where it's like he's a kid, like it's in his kitchen and he's a kid, and you see like it's shot from a different perspective, so he looks smaller, but he's still a kid. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Oh god. Okay, that's it for the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
So my last rapid fire. We got to go. So I wanted to watch some of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but it wasn't on any of my streaming services, and I wasn't going to go through the effort of procuring it another way. So I wanted to pick something that was from his early career. And this was the next best option because it was on YouTube and free.
Because it was free.
And it is Rockin' with the Chipmunks from 1992.
I remember that.
So like right at the beginning, pretty much, of his Fresh Prince of Bel-Air career.
Yeah,
during that same time period.
He might have still just been known as Fresh Prince, the guy. What year? Hold on, let's find out. What year did Fresh Prince start?
I seem to remember looking it up, and I think this is like a year into the show.
Is it a year? Because he was the Fresh Prince, like as a musician before the show came out.
I'm pretty sure. I'm too lazy to look
it up.
No,
he'd been doing the Fresh Prince for 2 years, because Fresh Prince starts in 1990.
2 years, okay. So he was the Fresh Prince, and so yeah, this one's fun. It's silly. It's only 30 minutes. It's one of those, back in the day, they had a bunch of 30-minute like Alvin and the Chipmunks like specials.
Yeah, so for the kids for you Gen Zers out there, you know how like now you occasionally get like streaming specials? We used to have VHS specials where it was like an hour long. And it was like or 30 minutes, and it was usually like, in the case of the Chipmunks, often coupled with another thing. And it was an extra long, different version of the show. In this case, it's a musical retrospective.
Yeah, it's sort of, you get to see from the 50s,
yeah,
until the 90s, which is when this was made. You kind of get to see through the decade, like a very fast retrospective of the Chipmunks and their influence, because this special is supposed to have been written by, like, it's written by Alvin.
Oh,
so it's like joke? It's through, because there's points where Will Smith will be reading a thing and he'll be like, Alvin, I can't say this. This is just patently not true.
Is that why every like iconic, so like there's the bit where the Chipmunks are just Elton John? Is that why?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I never knew that.
They influenced Elton John and inspired him to do his thing.
That's funny.
Or like same with Michael Jackson. They've got the Beach Boys. They've got a bunch of different well-known ones in there. The Beatles.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, like there's a point where he's Will Smith said, or the Fresh Prince, because he's not Will Smith yet. He's the Fresh Prince.
But not of Bel Air.
Says something to the effect of, yeah, Alvin even inspired the famous Michael Jackson to do his song, and he's like, Alvin, I can't say this. This is just not true. And Alvin's like, yo, like your contract says you'll read the script. And like the whole thing is like jokes like that. It's funny and it's cute. And it's got enough songs in there that I know that I'm like, I like the Chipmunks. I don't care if I'm a fully grown 32-year-old adult who probably shouldn't. I like the Chipmunks. I think they're fun, and they, unlike other cartoon bands, they actually sing well.
That's
like,
funny.
yeah, they have chipmunk voices, but they sing well.
They do sing well. The funny thing about the Chipmunks for me is always going to be like discovering how to make things sound like the Chipmunks, and thinking that you're a genius for discovering it. Where like, I sped up the thing and I sound like the Chipmunks, not realizing that that's exactly how they do it.
It's a very well-known secret.
Yeah, not exactly how they do it, because in the case of the original Chipmunks, he, in order to make the characters sound different, because it was all him, he bent the record. So that's why that's and then in the modern days, it's not just about speeding up. You also have to like emphasize every word, you sound like this.
Yeah,
and make sure you emphasize, because otherwise, when maybe I'll edit this, I'll make us sound like Chipmunks. Otherwise, you miss certain syllables,
and it sounds weird.
It's gonna be really embarrassing when I don't actually turn that into Chipmunks later.
But that's why, it's in particular in the '80s version. That's why they talk like this a lot, because that's what they had to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love
in
those
the
specials.
90s version. In the '90s version, it wasn't quite so emphasized because the technology got better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also in the case of one of the Theodore is not pitched up. That's just a female voice.
It is pitched up slightly, but not as much as the males.
Not as much as the males, but no, it's just it's literally just
it's his wife.
It's his wife. His wife does
yeah.
Theodore and the Chipmunks. Yeah.
Which is why when you got to the modern live action movies, they were, I believe they in those ones they're all played by women.
Yes, they're all played by women.
Which is what made it kind of a big deal when they.
The Chipmunks. Oh, it depends. The singing voices, most of the Chipmunks singing voices in those modern movies are all women for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
The speaking voices are men.
Which is what made it kind of a big deal when they put out an album and they had the Bagdarian come back and actually do the voices again.
Yeah, and then
his wife did Theodore again.
Theodore, and there's a really funny bit where they don't pitch it correctly on one of the songs, and you can hear him. It's really funny. Now he does it again because they've come back and they've done. If you want to see the weirdest chipmunk thing ever, look up Alvin and the Mini Monks. It's super weird. But they're doing the show. Yeah, they produced all the movies. They have like an iron like grip on that franchise,
which is not a bad thing.
Not necessarily.
Inherently. But that's Rockin' with the Chipmunks. It's technically a Will Smith thing.
It is technically a Will Smith thing. So my final rapid fire of the week is a little movie called. And Jim Carrey was like, I need you to understand that when I proceed to make fun of this movie, Jim Carrey was proud of this. He thought that this was going to change everything for him and that he was going to be a serious dramatic actor. I'm not even exaggerating. When I was reading about this movie, there's quotes from him saying as such. It's the number 23.
See, okay. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I like the movie, but not as a horror or a thriller. I think it's a comedy. I think it's a fantastic comedy.
I mean, okay, if you want to look at it as it's like satire of those kind of movies, maybe. But no, it is 100% sincere and
like if it is supposed to be sincere and earnest and like they want it to be scary and intense, then no, it absolutely fails.
It's supposed to be sincere. It's like he thought it was going to be like his Sin City.
When I watch it, and when we were talking about this last night, this was like what I was trying to articulate it. When I watch it, it's a comedy. It's funny. It's satire. It's amusing.
There are parts of this I like. Okay, Like
2 + 3 = 23, and that's the same as the number as the thing, and that's oh my
my
god!
name is Gary. That's 9. What is that even? Where are you getting these? Okay.
9 plus, and yeah. So it's
I
to
don't
me,
even know where to start
comedy.
with this. Okay, number one, numerology in terms of. I was trying to think of how to explain this, and I finally figured out a way. Like numerology, when it comes to conspiracy theories, is kind of like mime when it comes to theater. It's like the bottom of the barrel of like even conspiracy people are like that shit's nuts. Like so anything to do with and I think the reason why it's particularly aggravating with this is because you just know Jim Carrey actually believes in numerology. Like you just know he does. You just know he actually believes. And the thing that's wild about this
by now he does.
like
Yeah.
I didn't know the number 32 thing, that's real. Like that's a real thing.
Isn't it 23?
Yeah, I know there's a real thing where people think that the number everything that's 23, everything
not 30. Yeah.
yeah, everything that's in this movie, the number 23, like that's a real theory. That's a real thing that people have. It's based on a real thing. I'm not even kidding.
Hilarious.
I was reading about it. Yeah, it's so dumb. But like I don't
that just makes the comedy that is this movie even better.
I quite like that. Okay, I'm gonna spoil this stupid movie. But the ending, it turns out that basically the plot of the number 23 is Jim Carrey's wife buys him a book, and as he's reading, he finds all these connections to the number 23 and this character in this book, which has a remarkably similar to his life, and he becomes obsessed with it. And the big twist in the end, and it turns he's trying to find out who the author is the whole movie, and the big twist is that he's the author, and that it's all an elaborate metaphor that he basically killed his girlfriend. Murdered her, hit her body, and he's a murderer. And he basically snapped and like wrote this book as it would start out as a confession, became this long novel where everything had
manifesto.
Metaphor. But like, so much of it requires on. Okay, so and the thing was, he wrote this really long manifesto that the doctor who was looking after him published into a book, gave it a fake pseudonym, and coincidentally, put it in the same bookstore that the guy's wife like shopped at. She just so happened to pick up this book, and while incensed and crazy while writing it, he, knowing that he would somehow, after killing himself, read this book because the secret message he finds at the end specifically says Sparrow, so it's talking to him. He, while writing this manifesto, managed to think far enough in advance to be like every 23rd word. Like he would have had to have like thousands of pages of notes to make sure that the message lined up exactly right. Otherwise, it's a weird coincidence. And the movie never really like seems to indicate as to whether or not it's real or not, or whether or not he's just insane. And that's to me that bit that's frustrating. Because I don't think I like the twist that it's a guy reading a book about like this guy who like is going through this drama with somebody where he hurts or kills somebody, and then it turns out in the end that he's the author. Like I like that twist. That's a fun twist. But it's just there's so many fucking coincidences that have to line up perfectly for the plot of this stupid movie to happen. And then sandwiched on top of that is all the numerology bullshit.
So okay, here my headcanon for the book, like the wife finding the book thing, which I just thought this up, but it makes it funnier for me, is his doctor who released the book and sold it and got, made decent amount of money off of his patient's book, has been stalking the person that wrote the book for years, and he's gone crazy, and he planted the book so the wife would find it, so that the insane patient who wrote the book in the first place will then write a sequel, which he can then take and sell. That's my headcanon.
My thing I would maybe to make it still would be nonsense, but I was expecting her to be in on it the whole time. I was expecting it to be like she was like, oh, she's like his doctor or something, or she has some sort of established relationship with him. But yeah, it has his. The
she
ending
was a nurse.
The end. Yeah, I thought she was gonna be like his nurse or something, but no, the ending is just like no, she had no idea about any of this, and it's so. And what's even weirder is like the book is written so he gets to the 12th or the 22nd chapter, and it ends with him killing himself. And he's like, "Oh, I need to find the 23rd chapter," which he's
isn't it attempting to kill himself because he obviously survives?
well, yeah. And then it turns out that the third shade is like, "Oh, I am actually not Fingerling. I am actually," and it's his real name. It's not even like he's lost his memory. He has amnesia, but it's still his actual name. It's not like his like original name is a different name. So I'm like, wait, really? It took you like, and the thing it tries to be like, oh, the number gave me 12 years or however many years break because I was going after the doctor. But again, it doesn't really make it clear as to if the numbers are real or magic or it was just, man, it was a nonsense of a movie where he was the scenes where he's the detective is Fingerling and he's got his stupid tattoos and he's trying to be serious and it's just not working. I don't
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a performance thing because there's some good moments of performance in there where I'm like, no.
Right.
Jim
it's
Carrey.
Thing.
Yeah, Jim Carrey can absolutely. He doesn't have the, and this is the thing I discovered as he went on. He doesn't have the confidence to be a dramatic actor. He's scared of it. He wants to do it, but he's so scared of it that he does it in these weird bad. So I'm like, when he's like, oh, I made every movie I ever made when I was in a particular headspace. I'm like, is this where the weird conspiracy nonsense started? Because like, it sure seems like it might have. Anyway, that's my last rapid fire. I think it's time.
I could believe it.
I think it's time for the full report. Gotta ride the lightning, and we do the report, and we say the thing, and it's time. This episode's gonna be a 3-hour endeavor. Because it's almost 2 hours and we still have 4 more movies to do.
8, technically.
Technically, yeah. 4 more. Well, technically for me, it's technically 2 is 1 is technically 2.
We should get started on those. So my first have seen. So you a while back you did a bunch of live action Disney ones, and
I did.
To me, this is the best of them, which is Aladdin.
From what I recall, I definitely it's one of the better ones. That's for sure.
So I love the original.
I mean,
Aladdin.
it's basically just Hitch with Aladdin.
I have. Yeah, I could. Funny enough, I could see that comparison.
I'm not the first one to make that comparison. I can't take credit for that.
I wouldn't have thought of that, but I can see the comparison.
So, you seriously, in this moment, was that the first time you thought of that?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I just your face went, huh. It was like that moment from How I Met Your Mother with the glass shattering. You're like, huh.
I wouldn't have thought of that really, but no, yeah, it kind of is. Anyway, so I love the original Aladdin movie with Robin Williams. It will always hold a warm place in my heart, but it is a story which definitely can be enriched. It can be expanded upon, and it can be enhanced. And in a lot of ways, I think this movie does do that. It's not my favorite take on the Aladdin story. Funny enough, if I'm not counting the original movie, that would be. So there's a series of books which are called Twisted Tales. And one of them, they're basically like a what-if variation of the Disney movies, specifically the Disney movies. And there's an Aladdin one where it's basically what if at the moment where, and it expands upon the world. So in the book, Aladdin, like he has a mother. It brings back that plot thread. He has 2 friends, Morgiana and another character. So like it expands upon the world. Like it's not just Aladdin on his own. And it has other people who are people. And that's kind of, this movie tries to do that same thing where it tries to take the 90s ones, where the 90s ones are kind of caricatures of characters. So like Jafar in the original movies is not really a character.
I maintain that. Yeah, he's just a cartoonish. But
he's just a cartoonishly villain character.
To play a devil's advocate, though, sometimes that's fine, which I agree with. But I do agree that I do enjoy that he's almost like a dark, Like basically, he's like evil Aladdin. Essentially, I enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
in this movie, that's kind of what they portray him as, which I kind of like. They also they humanize Genie more in this one,
Yeah,
which
but he's not forced or
for
story.
better or
This
worse.
movie's better when he's. Someone said yeah. Someone said this movie gets better when it becomes just Hitch, but with Aladdin. When he stops having to just do the Robin Williams thing when he's not handcuffed to
Yeah,
that.
because and I remember saying this the first time that I watched this. Follow it for any person, anyone, because Will Smith got a lot of crap for this one.
Yeah.
But to follow Robin Williams, for anyone to try to follow Robin Williams
Yeah, it's gonna be
is
tough,
a almost insurmountable task.
right?
Um,
Talk about my
and I
powers.
honestly, I defy you or anyone really. Who who would you have picked if not Will Smith? If you could have picked anyone, who would you have picked? Who could have followed
John
Robin
Belushi. No.
Williams? Like who could have followed? Because like, you know what I mean. You get what
Yeah,
like
Chris
it's a
Farley.
hard
No.
task.
No, I'm not actually sure.
I think he, especially because in live
But
action,
like, I want them to do something different. So
the character, it has yeah. It just for me when you bring it to live action, they have to look a certain way.
yeah,
And I think this movie does that. I
it
think
did.
it
It did the best.
visually it does an okay job, and story wise, it expands enough on things that it doesn't
It
upset me quite
did
as
the
much as other
best it
live
could.
action ones.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I mean, look,
Um,
the thing about these Disney movies is they're always way more interesting when they're doing stuff that's different than they are when they're just doing the original movie but
a one
shitty.
to one,
Yeah,
yeah,
like the Lion King one is awful because it's just doing the original movie but shit. Like that's just
yeah.
yeah.
And so to bring it to because I'm trying to as much as I'm talking about the movie as a whole, I'm trying to focus on the Will Smith parts of it. And the
Oh, cats
him
forgot.
fall him having a love interest with the handmaiden is a choice.
Yeah.
Um,
They're just not a couple that I don't know. They just don't work as a couple for me. It's very
no,
odd.
I don't know. I maybe would have had it more focused on the friendship aspect of it, like maybe him and the princess kind of become friends,
Yeah.
and he's acting more as a wingman for Al. I don't know exactly what changes. I'd have to actually sit and critically think about what changes I would make. But um, in the book version, which is my favorite version of Aladdin, um, the Jafar ends up getting the lamp, and Aladdin is trapped in the Cave of Wonders, and it's sort of the fallout from there. And it's a really good story, and it's on Audible, and I definitely recommend it if you enjoy Aladdin. But
Is that it?
I'm trying to think. Hold on. Um, oh, the singers who like in this one, I will say at least compared to the bring it back to the Lion King, at least the singers can sing.
This is true. There is no Seth Rogen.
Also, also, this thing was not was expensive.
Yes, yes, it was.
Um, had a budget of 183 million, and I mean clearly it must have done fairly well because it made at the box office it made 1.054 billion with a
Yeah,
B,
that's why they wanted to make that Prince Anders show, which they never ended up making.
which nobody wanted.
No, because
But
they're
yeah,
like,
that's a
what?
lot.
That one guy at the beginning of the movie who's barely a character?
I
Him?
mean, if anything, why would you not have just made the Tales of the Genie, where it's I know why, because Will Smith would never agree to come
Yeah.
back for it,
No,
but
too expensive.
where each episode is the genie as a human sitting on the boat telling the stories of one of his previous masters.
That'd be pretty fun. I mean, I look, I don't understand that LeFou Gaston show, but at least I get that to a degree. At least those are characters people know.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
My
Aladdin.
in
What's your
my
first one?
in my continued journey of Jim Carrey wants to win an Oscar. Whenever anyone thinks of Jim Carrey dramatically, this is kind of the one movie that they think of, and that's the movie. Well, one of two ones, but this one is The Truman Show. And
Yes.
a ever present and ever relevant, socially relevant movie to this day. Because man, that movie understood not even just it. What I learned that was interesting is I was like, oh, surely this has to like predate reality television, and no, it doesn't. Apparently, Candid Camera premiered in the 40s, and it was called Candid Radio back then. Yeah. It was before television was really a thing, but it was called Candid Radio. So the notion of reality television is actually pretty old. But my thing with this movie, beyond the fact that it's fucked up,
very.
Like they buy this child, they buy this baby, and like they legally adopt the baby, which feels illegal. And throughout the movie, they don't really treat him like he's a human being. They treat him like he's an animal in a cage. Like he's
have said even less than that. They treat him like a prop.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but with their attitude towards him when he escapes, like they're really acting like he's like, like an animal who's escaped from the zoo, from his cage. Like he's in a cage. Like that's what it is. It's like he's in captivity. Like them instilling a fear of drowning, of wanting to leave, is so fucked. Like it's so fucked. And like, if anyone ever wants to know what gaslighting is, like if you have a friend who asks you, hey, what's gaslighting, make them watch The Truman Show, because this movie is just, every character in this movie just gaslights the hell out of him. Like the one point, the wife, like he's starting to like go crazy because he keeps seeing things, and the wife is like doing advertisements while he's having this breakdown, and he's like, who are you talking to? Like, why are you doing it? And then she freaks out as if it's his fault. It's like, well, no, you're doing this to. Why would you take this moment to sell a product? Like, are you like insane? Like, what's wrong with you?
It's in her contract.
Yeah, but like if you're trying to deceive him into thinking that everything's normal.
That's not even the word. The fact that you have engineered him to fall in love with this woman who cares not even one iota for him or like anything, and like, yeah, no, his entire life is a lie.
Or his best friend who claims to care about him, who's just being fed lines through. I do think that they give away the game too early, in my opinion. Like I think like, because there's it's initially kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's not secretive, but like you're not 100% sure. Like, you know, he's part of his show, but you don't know everything. And then about midway, they finally pull back the curtain and they show you like everything from the people who are making the show's perspective. Like you meet the guy who created it, all that. I think they should have not shown that he was on a show early on, and like let you wonder what's happening with Truman. Let you be like, what's this conspiracy that's going on? Like, let you be like, what is this? What's happening? And then midway, you find out he's on a show. Yeah, more of a thriller kind of thing. And yeah, you midway, you reveal that he's on a show, and you're like, oh, so that's, and have it be more of a twist. I think maybe would have made this slightly more interesting. And yeah, once again, he's more of a human here, Jim Carrey, and it makes him more interesting. They of course have obviously been talking about doing a sequel to this, and they're like even in universe, Truman's show ended. There's now this vacuum and this void in this world.
Yeah, what would all those people move on to?
Right. Where would the world go to? Like, especially
what fills the gap.
Like, especially like if you introduce the element of social media, there's just so much you can do with this idea of like of this reality show of these characters. You know, of this like person who's on the show.
I see a Black Mirror episode of this where
it's already basically a Black Mirror episode.
No, I know, but I'm saying what the follow up to it would be. I see it as it's not even a person. It's like a AI human.
Yeah.
Who thinks he's a person, and as they pull back the show, they find out that he's not a real person, and it goes off the rails.
That would be kind of interesting. I mean,
I see a version of this story where it's that.
the problem with Jim Carrey movies is every one of them, I'm like, yeah, you could do a sequel to this, but every one of them wants Jim Carrey to do it, and so they wait around for way too long. But it's like, yeah, you could absolutely, I don't, you could do one of two versions of this: a version where it's a new person, or, I mean, I would be interested in seeing a sequel where it's from about Truman. Like, how is he interacting with the world? Like, he's fucked, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can,
What's this?
I see two versions of it. One where you get Jim
What's the
Carrey back, and it's
psychological
this,
fallout?
yeah, where it's the sequel of like his entire life is a lie. He's on the outside, and everybody knows him, and he has to deal with everybody knowing him, and the like the fallout that comes from that. Or you have the other version where he doesn't come back, and it's now like 10, 15 years later, and another studio has started it again, and it's essentially a reboot.
That would be kind of interesting. Also, a thing I noticed this time watching it was his last name is Burbank. He's Truman Burbank, which is obviously it's a reference to the fact that he's on a sound stage, and most like Hollywood stuff happens in Burbank, California. There's a lot of Hollywood studios there.
Oh, I never even thought of
I
that.
know. I picked that up. I was like, that's clever. Just trying to think. Is there anything else I had about the Truman Show? A lot of it's really funny. Like when he goes to the travel agent, where it's like he can he could now in today's day and age he could just book this himself. Um.
Yeah,
Uh.
or he could contact Flight Center by Susan Spurr and use her perfect service
I know. And
to help him book it.
he could get off that island. Just trying to think. Was there anything else?
Throw it back to our sponsorship.
Yeah, it's a. My thing is like, I would love to know like, what did they think was gonna happen when he became an adult? Like, did they think he was never gonna like want to venture out?
He is
Like,
he is an adult, and they expected that he was never going to want to venture out, and that they could keep him contained and have the show go on until he died.
my thing is like, what is the payment structure on that show? Like, you got like he's known the one guy who's been doing the show since he was like since they were kids. Like, what's the
Yeah,
pay scale like?
do they have like a yearly meeting where he talks to the bosses and is like, all right, if I'm going to keep doing this show, this contract negotiations, I want another $2 million on my salary here.
Right?
Like, and like, does and I don't know how to say this tactfully. Um, does she who marries Truman get paid extra for performing her wifely duties?
I mean, they do
Because
say in the show you never get to see anything.
because
The movie, I
that
mean.
feels like a crime. No, but whether you get to see it or anything or not, as far as Truman is concerned, he's married to her.
Yeah.
Did she get a bonus for
And
performing the
that's funny because he's
for going on the
aware.
honeymoon?
He's completely aware that she doesn't like him because he's like, you hate me. um,
Like, so yeah, there's a lot of uncomfortable implications about this world, and
right?
the more you think about it and the more you pick it apart, the more you're like, yeah, this is a horror film.
My thing is like, it's just
I don't know, like,
how is
I
any
think
of
the
this
movie is supposed
legal?
to be a thriller, but like,
No, it's supposed to be
listen,
a drama. It's supposed to be a
yeah, and I'm saying it's not a drama. This is a horror film.
this guy's a victim. Like a corporation was able to adopt a child. This doesn't feel legal. Like, I don't know, how is any of this not a crime? I don't understand this.
Aren't
But
they filming it in like Switzerland or something?
no,
From what I remember.
no, they're in like a random soundstage. That's the whole thing.
No, but I mean the location of the soundstage.
Oh, I
I
don't.
just seem to,
Hold
I
on.
seem to remember. I seem to, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I seem to remember it's in a place where the laws are lax, and that's how they can get away with
Well,
it.
they refer to Truman as being the first child adopted by a corporation. I don't think they say where the soundstage is. I assumed it was in California, but hold on, let's just see.
Because I would tend to believe, just in order for it to make sense to me, that like they either built an island in the middle of the ocean and they are their own place, which is how they can legally get away with it, or it's in a place where those types of laws would be very lax.
All it
Like
says is Truman's hometown Sea Haven Island is set in an enormous soundstage, which allows Christoff, the show's creator and executive producer, to control most of the aspects of Truman's life, including the weather. So it's an advanced soundstage. It does not. He wants to go to Fiji. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't specify where specifically it is.
Interesting.
I'm assuming California, considering his name is Burbank. His last name is Burbank.
I just don't. You're right. That would be my one big suspension of disbelief issue here. Is
Yeah.
I
It sounds like a
feel like
crime.
it would. Yeah, it seems like a very big crime, which would not be allowed.
It's clearly not because they're airing it on television. But
I suppose the reason why it's allowed, in terms of a legal standpoint, is because I imagine because his parents, like the parents that are on the show, are his actual parents.
No, that's the whole thing. No, they're not his actual parents. He is adopted by the corporation that owns the show. That's the whole thing. So
I'm pretty sure I remember it being that the parents are actually his parents. Yes,
no.
I don't think that's right.
Not according to the Wikipedia and the movie.
Mm.
No, they're not his. They're not his actual parents.
I feel like that's not right.
He was given up by a he's selected at birth and legally adopted by a television studio following an unwanted pregnancy. Truman Burbank is the unsuspecting star of the Truman Show. So he's legally adopted by.
Okay, but so then he is adopted by parents that didn't want. So my point is that he, legally speaking, would have been like they essentially would have signed away their rights.
I'm sure it's his legal parents is probably like the CEO of the company or something.
Yeah, and so
he's an orphan. He's technically an orphan. If you want to get specific.
It's scummy, but at that point, I can see the legal loopholes.
Yeah,
that would enable it to be.
But to me,
to happen.
I'm weird. I find that stuff interesting.
Is it ethical? Oh, it's very unethical.
I would watch I'd watch either a prequel or I mean, to be fair, they could also do a prequel. I would absolutely do a prequel about season 1.
I mean, yeah, they could literally just do a movie where it's about not even just like when he was a kid, but just like moments through his life.
Yeah.
Before he discovered he was on the show.
I would
do like I would almost. One way that I would maybe do it is I would do it where the framing device is we are with like a family or with someone who are watching the show.
Oh, I mean, no, my idea is more like
we watch the show.
My idea is it's about the creator and it's about the creation of the Truman Show, and like, cause surely you're right. Like if there would be like people protesting this or like
one of them was the girl that was on the show.
By the time we got to it, it had been on the air for like what 30 years. But like I would love to see the first year of the show and see like how they created it, the ethics of it, like explore the ethics of this, because surely somebody has questioned the ethics of this. I mean, they do kind of, but not really.
Yeah, for me, it's like I think you could almost just reboot it and do that with another actor.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't need Jim Carrey. You just
This is an example of one of his movies where you don't really need him.
You do a prequel and you make it where Truman's a kid and you just got Truman's name. It's not Jim Carrey. But yeah, you don't need Jim Carrey for this. I mean, it's such a relevant topic, like supervision by a media company. It's just so present in our lives right now as we. Hello, YouTube. Anyway, that's and Spotify. We bow to our corporate overlords. That's the Truman Show. Truman Show, not the Truman Show.
So
Truman Show.
My next movie is also about the future, a future dominated by technology that might one day grow consciousness and choose to not listen to the 3 laws of robotic and do what it feels is necessary to protect us. I watched iRobot.
That's a pretty good movie. Yeah, that's usually when I want to talk about the laws of robotics. That's always the example. It's funny because we want for my Star Trek show, The Final Frontier, we had to talk about that because I was like, oh, does this exist pre-laws of robotics? And it turns out the laws of robotics are actually quite old.
Yeah, they're from like the 50s or 60s.
50s. Yeah.
1950. short
Yeah.
story. Isaac Asimov. So, it's funny. As I was watching this movie this time, I think I've had this thought before, but I definitely had it this time. Um, so my headcanon is this is a prequel to The Matrix.
I can see that.
So for those who haven't seen this movie,
But
this movie from
don't they
2004,
destroy?
which is like 20 years old. Um, uh, uh, Basically,
Big
the
twist.
one robot, Vicky, spoilers, Vicky, starts to grow and starts to interpret the three laws in a different way, and then
The
uses her
only way to
uplink,
protect the humans is to kill them.
not to kill them, but to keep them subjugated, basically. And Meanwhile, Will Smith hates robots and has a prejudice, and so the guy who made the robots um, unalives himself, and then
Did you just say unalives himself?
banks on. Well, he doesn't kill himself. He has the robot kill him.
Oh, that is true. But he technically kills
So
himself.
he death by another.
It's
It's a
euthanasia.
yeah, essentially. Um, and
We're not talking about the youths in Asia. We're talking about youth in Asia.
Will Smith hates the robots. He banks on that to basically get him to figure out what's actually going on. And so at the end of the movie, to answer your question, Vicky is dead, but it ends with Sonny standing on all the fancy robots have been rounded up and have gone to a storage unit
Yeah, he's
essentially.
all like, "We're not going to do a
And
big revolution." He's like, "I'm
and
kidding. We're going to do a
it
big
ends
revolution."
it ends with Sonny, the one robot who doesn't have to follow the three laws, standing on top of the hill as all the other robots look to their messiah, who again doesn't have to follow the three laws of robotics. And if there had ever been a sequel, which there was, it's called The Matrix. Clearly led the robot revolution and turned humans into batteries.
It's true. I
I'm
see
just
it.
saying.
I see it.
This movie is a prequel to The Matrix, especially because I'm pretty sure in joking aside, I believe there was a thing which was a collection of short stories called the Animatrix,
Yes, yes, there
and I
is.
believe in one of them there is an entire storyline about how they created the robots and treated them like slaves, and I believe it was also based on Isaac Asimov's
I'm
short
sure it
story,
was. Yeah, I'm
uh,
sure it was.
which this also was. So it's
But
like this really just could be a sequel or a prequel to The Matrix.
I mean, it could
But
be.
um it's a fun one. I like it. I've watched it a few times and it's pretty paint by numbers. It's not
It's got some Shia LaBeouf in there. He's wanting to say a
it
swear, and Will Smith's like, "Don't say a swear, Shia LaBeouf."
yeah. It's cute.
He's like, "You're too young to be saying a swear, Shia LaBeouf."
Also apparently the film was nominated for best visual effects but lost to Spider-Man 2.
Hmm. It does have some good special effects. The robots themselves are they look believable. Anything where like they look like they exist in the space, you know.
Yeah, they look believable enough to me. Apparently the budget was 120 million, and the box office was 353.1 million. So it didn't do terribly.
All right, all right.
I think it's a fairly well received movie.
And Will Smith he be Will Smith in yo.
He's pretty peak Will Smith in
He
this.
be Will Smith in. He be Will Smith in all over the place.
Um,
Do you have anything further to say about iRobot? iRobot.
this was based on quite a few stories actually.
Yes, yes, it is.
Interesting.
I think
Sorry, I'm just
iRobot
reading
itself
through.
is that is an like that is an Isaac Asimov story, but it's not. This movie's not specifically based on iRobot, from what I recall. But I could be recalling wrong.
Huh. So apparently, in an interview in June 2007, um, the writer and producer Ronald Moore stated that he was writing a sequel to the film. And in two-disc all-access collector's edition, Alex Proyas mentions that if he were to make a sequel to the film, which he says in the same interview is highly unlikely. It would be set in outer space. That's really all I have to say about it. It's a fine movie.
It's a
That's kind of the
fine
theme.
movie.
That's kind of the theme of, and that is an interesting thing that I would like to say about Will Smith movies is most of the movies themselves. I'm going to preface this with, in my opinion, most of the movies themselves are kind of just okay, and he elevates them.
Fair.
Like, if he wasn't in the movies, I would probably say a lot of these are bad.
Yeah, fair.
Like it's definitely
in space.
Space.
Speaking of space,
so what's your last half seen?
Well, it's sort of two, because I watched one and then I watched the other as a kind of a companion piece. So it's The Man on the Moon.
If you believe they put a man on the moon.
And I also watched Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond, because I felt like I couldn't talk about one without talking about the other. Now, for those of you who have not seen Man on the Moon, it is a biographical picture about the life and career of one Mr. Andy Kaufman, who Kaufman. I don't know. Everyone pronounces it differently. He played Latka on Taxi, and he wouldn't say he was a comedian, but he have you seen Man on the Moon, Jordan?
Yeah, long time ago. I watched it as a kid.
How would you describe Andy Kaufman?
Dick.
Like he's like an internet troll before.
Okay. You want a more in-depth one? If you've ever been to the Tenacious D concert back in the day, he was like a hamburger.
Neil Hamburger? Kind of, yeah.
Neil Hamburger. He's what I would describe as anti-humor.
Yeah, anti-humor. Yeah, where like he'd show up and like
he's meant to be disruptive. He's meant to be a problem, and that's supposed to be the joke, but it's not funny.
I don't think it's funny, and so I mean it depends. There's some of the things he did that I think were kind of funny, like the Mighty Mouse where he stood there and he would just only ever do the "Here he comes to save the day," but he did stuff like he professional wrestled women, and because he was fascinated with the concept of kayfabe, and so he had this fake beef with Jerry Lawler where he got into this huge fight, and he had this fake lounge singer character called Tony Clifton, which he would actively deny was him. And he had a writing partner in this movie played by Paul Giamatti, called what's his name? I can't remember what his name is, but he would also sometimes dress up as Andy Kaufman. And in terms of a movie, it kind of makes Andy Kaufman look like it makes him look like he's on. He did seem like this movie. This movie seems to, from what I can understand, drastically misunderstand him, because it makes him seem like he's just kind of a prick who was incapable of being a normal guy or like working well with others or anything like that. Like he was constant, like it was always hard to tell whether or not and so at the end of the movie, in real life, Andy Kaufman died of cancer. And so there's a scene, he had a cancer tumor on his lung. And there's a scene at the end where he goes to his, his manager and the Paul Giamatti character and his girlfriend, and he's basically like, "I have cancer." And they're like, "Shut up, that's not funny." And my first thought was like, what must it be like?
Wolf says what?
Right, yeah. As a man, what is that like to live? Like living your life like that can't be fun, or enjoyable. Or how is that fun? To every time you try to say something serious or have a serious point or have a serious feeling about someone, everyone just laughs at you and assume that you're pulling a prank or that you're joking. To the point that like people thought that Andy Kaufman faked his death and that he was just gonna like miraculously come back to life and it was all gonna be some big joke. And the movie kind of implies that's what they think, because at the end, the final scene of the movie is Tony Clifton shows up to perform, and you think it's the Paul Giamatti character, and it pulls over, and Paul Giamatti's in the audience, implying that Andy Kaufman is still alive. And there's a thing at the end, and this happened to him in real life, where it's like, fuck people who this is the spur of the moment position on this. Fuck people who do psychic surgeries. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're the worst. Where he goes to this, he's the kind of guy who he's into like real like spiritual stuff, but because like this, like he's into meditation and all that stuff.
Oh, so he's nuts.
So because no, any people who are into meditation and all that stuff, no, that can be beneficial. We have to be fair-minded. But the psychic surgery, believe me,
So he's a hippie.
he's a hippie, kind of, yeah. And he at one point gets kicked out of his group because of the wrestling with women and the vulgarity. Like he gets on David Letterman and he cusses out Jerry Lawler. And as far as a performance goes, it's a really good performance. Like he does a really solid Andy Kaufman impression. He does quite an impressive Tony Clifton impression. And there's a lot. What's kind of neat about this movie is when he's on Taxi, it's actually the cast of Taxi are there playing themselves.
Oh
Yeah. What's his face? The guy who runs something Lauren Michaels. Anyway, the guy who does SNL, he shows up as himself. And what's weird is the cast. Danny DeVito is in this movie. He plays
the guy from Taxi.
No, he plays Andy's manager, George Shapiro. But in the scenes with Taxi, Danny DeVito isn't there as himself. Which is really bizarre, yeah. And so at the end of the movie, he's going to get the psychic surgery, and he spots the guy doing the sleight of hand to do the psychic surgery, and he kind of laughs at the bitter, like, universal joke that the guy who constantly tried to prank people and like screw people over or whatever, he sees that as a big joke. Yeah, and it's a good performance. He's not Jim Carrey in it. There's a point where he like just kind of becomes Andy Kaufman, which leads to Jim and Andy the Great Beyond, which is a documentary about the making of The Man on the Moon, which apparently this is true. Like Universal didn't want to release the rights to didn't want to release the behind the scenes footage of making of The Man on the Moon because they thought it would make Jim Carrey look like an asshole, which he does. He does look like a big ol' asshole in this movie because he method acts. He method acts the whole time. When he's on set, he refuses to answer to Jim Carrey. He will only answer to Andy Kaufman. The entire time he pretended he was Andy Kaufman. Like he pretended that the ghost of Andy Kaufman had come down from heaven and possessed him, and he became Andy Kaufman. And so then there's points where he's talking about Jim Carrey, like in the third person, where like Jim Carrey thinks that this is gonna be his like big break, and he's finally gonna be respected as an actor, and he's finally gonna get that whatever. He's finally gonna be respected, and this is gonna be his big moment, and he's really self-conscious about this, that, and the other thing, and.
It sounds to me like Jim Carrey had a full mental breakdown.
Well, it's either he's gone through a full mental breakdown, or he's like doing it on purpose, and the movie because he thinks that's what because at one point he starts to become friends with I'm gonna have to look up the guy's name, but he becomes friends with the real life guy who Danny DeVito who Paul Giamatti plays. It's gonna be easier to. Bob Zmuda, that's what his name is. He plays he becomes friends with Bob Zmuda, and so it implies that him pretending to be Andy Kaufman thing is all a bit, like it's all a joke, because he'll talk about like at one point he as Tony Clifton goes to Amblin Studios and starts yelling he wants to talk to Steven Spielberg so we can yell at him about I think it's about Jaws, about the shark. I want to talk to him about the shark or whatever. He just starts, and there's points where he's like absolutely wasted. At one point, he's like, there's several points in the movie where Jim Carrey's just standing around smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "I don't smoke. What is this? I don't do this. I don't smoke. Why am I smoking?" Like, and it interchanges between appearing as though he legitimately thinks he's Andy Kaufman. And
sounds like he had a full mental breakdown.
And it's just like, imagine, like, at the end of the day, movies like this remind you that the movie set is still a workplace. Like, imagine if your coworkers showed up and started behaving like that. It would be awful. It would be terrible. And this,
especially when you're doing 12-hour day, like 12, 13, 14-hour days.
and like, yeah, like he says a bunch of like conspiracy riddled, like at one point, like, oh, I don't believe in free will. No, I picked up this tea. Did I pick up the tea, or am I just thirsty? I don't believe in. And he's doing weird shit like that. And it's
So
like,
what you're describing sounds a lot like modern day Jim Carrey.
yeah. Well, this
And
is modern day Jim Carrey. Well, I should say, sorry. I should mention the documentary is framed around Jim Carrey telling this story. So every once in a while, it cuts to interviews with modern day Jim Carrey,
so
and he just looks dissociated. He just looks off.
yeah, I don't think he's well.
Like he just doesn't. It's like, man, he became insufferable, and this documentary is just it's showing him at his most insufferable, and it's exceptionally frustrating because it doesn't really show anyone else's perspective. It's all his perspective, and it's all made to look as though he did a good thing. Like one of the most ghoulish things he does is he has this conversation with the real Andy Kaufman's family as Andy Kaufman, and he's like, oh, it's this like therapeutic moment where I got to talk to his daughter who never actually got to meet him in real life. And like, dude,
That'd be
that's
horrifying.
so manipulative and awful, and like, you're just like an actor in a movie, man. Like this is not
Ghoulish.
okay. Yeah, ghoulish. It's so ghoulish. And it just makes him seem like it does it. The movie makes him seem like just an absolute prick, like an absolute asshole. And yeah, he says like in the movie he says, oh, he never really came back from that. And I'm like, it kind of, but this movie came out in 1999, so I already talked about like Bruce Almighty, and he did a bunch of me, myself, and Irene. Like he did a bunch of comedies after this, but they are him
Right,
trying to
he would
recapture Ace
say-
Ventura.
Yeah, he would say that was him trying to put the mask back on.
That's what they feel like. That's what these movies feel like. He feels like an insecure man who didn't want to be known for one thing, and instead of trying to evolve and like embrace that one thing and doing it, like he didn't go through like a 5-year career surgence where he did a bunch of dramas that were well received and then came back to comedy. And it makes me wonder if had he done that, maybe yeah, we'd be talking about him differently. But yeah, it's my general summation, and we're gonna talk about some the stuff I hadn't seen. But yeah, I just remember this documentary was frustrating because it doesn't tell anyone else's perspective other than one moment where they interview. Well, number one, you can see the director Milo Forman. He's getting agitated. At one point, he calls Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey relates the story of how he calls him. He's like, I just want to work with Jim. I don't want to work with Andy. Oh, I don't want to work with Tony Clifton. And Jim's like, oh, well, you can fire them and I can do an impression. And like, no, I don't want to get rid of them. I don't want to get rid of them. And you can tell he's
That is insane.
right.
What
right?
do you mean you could fire them? They're not there. You're a guy who's wearing an outfit.
Right.
Just do that, but be fucking professional.
Just be normal, Jim Carrey. Be normal.
Not even normal. Professional. Be
Right.
professional.
Like at one point, he's like as Andy Kaufman, because Jerry Lawler is also there as himself. He's playing himself, and they're recreating these moments with Andy Kaufman. And like at one point, he keeps like trying to like verbally abuse Jerry Lawler. Like at one point, he tries to like push him. He tries to hit him. He's basically trying to get a reaction out of him and trying to instigate him. And like Jerry Lawler is just confused. He's like, I don't understand what's happening. It's like Jim Carrey doesn't understand Andy Kaufman at all. It's like, yeah, on camera we did this stuff. Like when we were in front of people, we did this. But like behind the scenes, he was very professional and like very nice. And like it wasn't
And
real.
my friend.
Yeah, and my friend, and it wasn't real. And Jim Carrey just doesn't seem to understand that. At one point, Jerry Lawler like does a power bomb and powers him on his neck and like nearly breaks his neck and nearly punches him in the face, and like they get into this huge fight. And he's just like, yeah, he's the only one you really get to see his perspective on Jim Carrey's behavior during that movie, which, yeah, I don't know if this movie is meant to make him look better, but it doesn't. If anything, it makes him look worse. And yeah, the fact that it's like framed by weird modern day awful Jim Carrey, who's, it's again, and I'm gonna say this again, insufferable. it just was like, oh, I didn't mind the Man in the Moon. I quite liked it, but yeah, the Jim and Andy the Great Beyond, incredibly frustrating experience. That I would, if you ever want to be like, if you know any actors and you want to be like, don't be a douchebag method actor, show them this movie. This is why. That is all of my have scenes. It's time for the have not scenes. What had you seen?
So the first one is we got to go all the way back to the 90s, baby. We're gonna watch, which I didn't realize this, but having now reading this, it makes sense. It's Michael Bay's feature directorial debut. Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do?
Wait,
What you gonna do when they call for you?
Bad Boys is in the 90s? What year did Bad Boys come out?
95.
Really?
Yep.
No shit.
And
what's your second one? That you hadn't seen?
It's an animated movie called Spies in Disguise.
Right. Sorry. I was like, wait, we didn't talk about Suicide Squad. You watched Suicide Squad. We didn't talk about Suicide Squad.
I forgot about that. That's
too late.
The thing I did.
Too late.
Too late.
It's too late.
Too late.
It's too late.
We'll have to save that for another time.
We'll save that for another time. It's too late.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. I didn't have that on my list here. I don't know how I forgot that one.
But anyway, Bad Boys.
Bad Boys.
I've seen Bad Boys. All I remember about that is I remember the first one and the second one are exactly the same movie. Like, exactly the same movie.
I can't speak for that. I didn't watch the second one.
Not much happens in it.
And here's what I'll say. Michael Bay, in his directorial debut, really set a precedent for what he likes. And he likes explosions.
Like explosions and boobies.
This movie has a lot of explosions. Not so many boobies.
Not so much boobies, no.
Just a lot of explosions, though. And it has Will Smith and Marcus Burnett being black.
You mean
is really the simplest way I can. Martin Lawrence. Yeah, what did I say? Marcus Burnett is the character name. So
gotcha. I was like, you said another name that wasn't Martin Lawrence.
Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are just kind of being black.
I mean, they are.
That's really what they are. That's really what. I mean, I know they are black, but like, they're really. I don't know how to say this. There's no how do I word this, Justin?
I don't know. You're digging your own hole here, man. I'm not joining you.
They're giving a very 90s. So you know how okay, here's how I'll word it. You know how in Family Guy there's the cutaway joke where it's Peter and he's like, oh, like it's got the like the 80s like da da da, like they're very friendly and happy, and it's like, oh no, they're being attacked by the 90s black guys, and the 90s black guys are very aggressive and like over the top.
Yes, I do recall that.
Future Justin can cut to the Family Guy joke here to make this seem less awful. That's what this feels like what that gag is making fun of.
Gotcha.
Where it's like they are putting a particular performance in, and it feels very 90s.
Gotcha.
But movie is basically about two narcotics detectives. They were investigating a whole bunch of heroin, yada yada yada. Criminals steal heroin back, and then they are trying to work out the case and protect this witness and stuff. There's this whole dynamic where Martin Lawrence's character is a family man, and Will Smith's character is like the playa. And Martin Lawrence has to like pretend that he's Will Smith's character, and it's fine. It's definitely a Michael Bay movie.
On a scale of 1 to Transformers.
Transformers being 1? Wait, which Transformers?
Just generally, his Transformers movies.
The franchise?
In terms of quality.
If Transformers is 1, I would put this at a 6.
All right. I meant like Transformers being like peak nonsense.
I mean, this isn't nonsense. It's a pretty paint by numbers cop movie.
So 6.
Sure.
All right.
I thought you were talking in terms of like quality from a directorial
Just
standpoint.
mean generally.
6.
All right.
It's a real 6.
Real 6
It's
kind of
just
movie.
it's just okay. Here's what I'll say. Joking aside, it's fine for what it is. I don't understand how it has a sequel.
You know the worst
I
thing it
don't.
ever did? Okay, Jordan. They made there's 4 of these movies, right? And the third one they called it Bad Boys Forever.
But they should have called the fourth one "Bad Boys
To the
Forever."
point, Jordan. To the point that when they did the fourth one, they in a bunch of interviews they both were like, we know, we shouldn't have called the third one Bad Boys Forever. We know, we know."
um, it's just it's and
They
maybe we're
weird
gonna
popular movies, man. I
maybe
don't get it.
yeah. I was gonna say maybe we're gonna have a bunch of pushback on this. I watched this one, and there's certain movies where when you watch them, you're like, I can see how this spawned a franchise.
Yeah, I know. I don't get it
Like
either.
I understand how multiple of these ended up being. I can see how it would be, but to me, this is a real one-off movie.
All I remember is I watched the first one and being like, it's all right, and then watching the second one and being like, it's literally exactly the same movie. Like I'm not even being
Like,
exaggerating. I'm not even exaggerating. It's like it's literally like the plot's exactly the same. Like there's like I just remember it's like exactly the same movie.
you know how I was able to give Ali a compliment sandwich here with this movie. I just have to kind of say it. Of the movies I watched this week, I think it's Will Smith's weakest performance.
I
I
mean,
think it's his worst movie.
I remember it being very dull. I don't remember anything.
It is. It
Nothing
is
about
very
that.
dull.
Yeah, that's all I remember about it.
It's just a cop
But
movie,
I don't
and
think
it's not a very good one in my opinion.
no, because it's one of those, like there's a certain threshold for cop movies where like there are cops where you're like where you're like it's the same thing I have with the Beverly Hills Cop movies where I'm like, but he would have to spend several years of being an okay cop before he could be a shit one. So like you're like I just don't believe that these guys would become cops. It just doesn't it's not believable to me,
No, and they break a lot of laws too.
right?
And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like there's certain
To
roles
go
that
back, it
I
reminds
think
me
a
of
person
to go
I
back
think a
to sorry, I was just gonna say to go back to Liar Liar. It just reminds me of that movie where it was like way too many lawyers in this office are just willing to commit perjury.
Yeah, and way too many cops in this precinct are willing to bend the law. But to not to get political here, but some would argue that that makes it a super realistic movie because that's what the police do.
Jordan, I'm gonna
Um,
awkwardly change the subject. Jordan, is that it? Is that all you have to say about Bad Boys 2? Or Bad Boys 1?
yeah. So real quick, um, I know a future episode that's coming up, so we may be revisiting this franchise.
We may be. We may be. So my first have not seen is a very very long movie. Oh my god, was it a long movie? Called The Majestic. Jordan, have you seen The Majestic?
No, I've never even heard of it.
The only thing I remember, the one number one thing I remembered about this movie was I remember seeing a trailer for this movie when I was a kid and being like, that actor looks like Jim Carrey. And it's just not looking like him, but like it looking close enough to him that I just be like, that looks like Jim Carrey. And then it getting to the part of the trailer where it revealed, oh the shit, that is Jim Carrey. Because that was at the point where he was still like Ace Ventura, The Mask, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so, okay, this is a heavy, schmaltzy, sappy drama movie where Jim Carrey is a writer in Hollywood in the 1950s during the height of the Red Scare, the Red Panic. And for one reason or another, um, he is believed to be a communist. And so he gets investigated for being a communist and he gets kicked off of fired from the movie he is currently making because he's a writer in Hollywood. And after that happens, he gets very drunk and very depressed, and he drives. He goes to drive, and he gets into a car crash, and he wakes up in this little town with amnesia, where this town mistakes him for this like guy who went off to war because there's this town where a bunch of their family members went to war and then didn't come back, and so they think he's one of them. And the movie is basically about him getting to know him, trying to regain his memory, and get to know this town. And he rebonds with this one of the gentlemen who owns the theater, the Majestic, who thinks that Jim Carrey is his son. And yeah, and then about midway through the movie, the dad dies, thinking that Jim Carrey is his son, which causes Jim Carrey sees the poster from one of his movies, which causes his memory to come back. And and to his credit, he goes to leave because he's like, I'm not this guy, I'm not this person, whatever. And as he's about to basically confess and be like, oh, I'm not this guy, the investigators or whatever for this panel, for this red communist investigative panel, whatever, comes and takes him back to effectively put him on trial. And yeah, and my thing with this movie is, you said the previous one was confused. This movie would be stronger if you didn't know who he was as well, because you know that he's not this guy so much, because this movie's 2.5 hours long, and so much of it is him like trying to get his memory back. But you're like, but it would be better if it was 15 minutes shorter, and it started with him waking up in the town and not knowing who he was, and then you find out that he's not this guy, and you find out who he is, and then you reveal who he is in the back half, because he has this really long monologue in this courtroom that feels like it's from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is a reference you're not going to get, but it feels like it's from a completely different movie. Like, it has nothing. And so then he's like, oh, he does this big speech. Everyone thinks he's this big hero, and he goes back to working for the movie studios, and he realizes like that's hollow and that's not what he wants. And he like goes back to this town, and they all give him this like hero's welcome and welcome back. And everyone is like, oh, you were pretending to be this guy. And it's kind of like, well, no, he wasn't really pretending to be this guy. The town thought he was this guy and kept trying to convince him he was this guy. And so they're all like, yeah, sorry. At the end, it kind of has this vibe of like, yeah, sorry. We understand, that was kind of our bad for making you think that you were maybe this guy. That's kind of our mistake. But yeah, it's just kind of it's like emotional in a way that's hollow and like meaningless, if that makes any sense.
Cotton candy.
Not even cotton candy, but like it's like, yeah, schmaltzy is that the best kind of like over the top level of drama, where it's like it's too much, it's too far, and he's a good dramatic actor. He is. He just picks bad movies. Like, that would be my thing. Is he picks bad movies that don't stretch his talents like nearly enough. And yeah, this movie's too long. It needed to be 30 minutes shorter. It would have been a much better movie if it was 30 minutes shorter. Trying to think. It's a lot of like, this movie could only take, like, he shows up and everyone thinks he's this guy. And it's like, this is a movie that could only take place in the 1950s, because if it took place today, it wouldn't happen. You'd have photographs of this guy to know that he doesn't look anything like him.
Right. Right. Product of its time.
Yeah, and then there's a big moment at the end, and here's a moral question for you. So this guy thinks that you're his son, and he's dying of a heart attack, and you've now realized that you're not this guy. Do you let the dad die thinking that you're the son if it makes him happy?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's because that's what Jim Carrey did. Yeah.
Let him live with one last happiness.
Yeah.
Do one last kindness unto him.
Yeah.
Rather than let him die in terrible sadness but
it has a ridiculously weird happy ending, and yeah, it's all right. It's not the worst of his movies. You know what? We're probably gonna we'll do a ranking of worst and best, I think, at the end of this. But that's it. That's it for the Majestic.
I wish you had said that before I closed all my tablets, my tabs. And
you're just gonna have to remember it off by memory, bitch.
No, that's not gonna go well. My last have not seen. So, a thing that I discovered about Will Smith is, and I'd be interested to know if he has a reason why this is. He's only done 2 animated movies.
Yeah, we talked about this. What
in
was the
his
second one
entire
again?
career.
Oh, right.
Now,
Shark Tale. Right.
yeah, one was Shark Tale, which is not what I watched. And the other is Spies in Disguise, which I had never seen before. And I don't know why. I don't know why we didn't watch this one because it's fun.
I did. I've seen this one.
No, but I mean like in
Oh, in
theaters.
theaters. Because it's. I believe that's it. Wait, what year? When did it come out?
2019.
Oh no, that's pre-pandemic, isn't it? It just must have been one of those ones that. Wait, what was the what? When did it come out?
Uh,
Just trying to think. 'Cause that just might be one of those ones that was just during that period of time where other stuff had come out.
I'll have to actually look it up. Hold on.
But it's Will Smith. He gets turned into a pigeon.
It's based on a short film.
Where a character gets turned into a pigeon.
I by appearances, September 27th, 2019.
Oh yeah, that's in the bad. That's in the bad time. That's when, yeah, not very many movies come out. Anyway, Spies
Yeah.
in Disguise.
Spies in Disguise. So 2 years after Spider-Man: Homecoming comes out, Tom Holland is like, an animated movie? Sure, why not? Because he's also in this.
He is also in
Um,
this.
um, and so yeah, this movie is based on animated short called Pigeon Impossible. Um, and basically, this movie is Tom Holland's character makes invents things, and he ends up working for a
He's
spy
Q.
agency. And yeah, he's Q, or Q's apprentice before Q got famous.
Yeah,
Um,
he's the guy
and
who he's Q's intern.
yeah, basically.
Wait, were you doing that right? Q's
And
from James
so
Bond, right?
I have no idea.
No, keep
Um,
talking. I'm gonna Google it.
he ends up making this formula, which uh turns Will Smith's character into a
Yeah.
pigeon. Also, Will Smith's character was framed for doing evil spy
Murders.
things. Evil spy things. Doesn't really matter what they are. And which is why he goes to Tom Holland and is like, help. And at the beginning, he's kind of a dick, and along the way, him and Tom Holland's character, they grow closer, and he learns to open his heart. Will Smith's character learns to open his heart and be less of a dick, and he has to work with the pigeon crew, or a bunch of pigeons, and when he's a pigeon, he can understand them, but we can't understand them, and they solve the day, and then the leader of the spy agency is like, Tom Holland, I want you to lead a new group of spies, and Will Smith is like, all right, I'm with you, and it's a happy ending, and it's a kids movie, so really
Yeah.
we weren't going to get anything super deep
And then
here,
he's like, I
but
don't
it's
want to be a
cute.
pigeon. But then at the end, he's like, I need to be a pigeon.
I don't mind being the pigeon. It's not so bad. It's a Blue Sky Studios movie,
It
so
is. I
do
believe
with that
it's
what you will.
one of their last movies. I believe, if not their last
Dis-
movie.
Distributed by 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, I think that one
And
was one of the ones that like got lost in the shuffle when they got bought by Disney.
it had a budget of 100 million, and its box office was only 171.6 million. So it did not do the
It
greatest.
did okay. It didn't do great.
Passably, it broke even
It's the reason
basically.
why Blue. I mean, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it. Yeah, it's the reason why Blue Sky Studios effectively shut down because it made like no money.
Let's find out. Where's their filmography? Vamp while I look.
Well, I like the joke where he's like where Will Smith turns into the pigeon and he's like, I'm not looking straight at you. What's happening? I don't understand what's happening. I like that bit.
There may be some. It was their last movie.
Yeah.
So
I'm
yes, I would say it didn't do well, and it was the nail in the coffin,
pretty
the
sure.
proverbial
Yeah,
nail in the coffin.
yeah. I'm
Well,
pretty sure.
clearly it was because it was the last movie.
There was
So
last movie it didn't do, but I don't know if that was if they had already been bought in by that point. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, I knew it was around
but
that period, which is why it didn't do super well because they didn't really promote it all that well.
But yeah, if I had to summarize, I would say, or sum it up, I should say, I would say I was pleasantly surprised with this
It
one.
was very reliant on people liking Tom Holland. Is what is really what I would say.
And Will Smith.
No, but at that period, Tom Holland was like Spider-Man, so they really were counting on that, like selling that movie,
You're not wrong.
and it
But
didn't.
I really don't have much more to say about this one.
All right, that's
It
all
was
to do.
fine. That's kind of the if I had to summarize Will Smith's what I've seen of Will Smith's career, it really is he elevates a thing which is otherwise just kind of okay.
Okay, so Jordan, with that, we're gonna do best movie, or if you prefer, favorite movie of the week.
Favorite. Hmm.
You're not allowed to look
You
it up.
know,
It has to be purely by memory.
oh no, I'm already looking it up.
Damn it, Jordan! Yeah, you're not allowed to cheat.
Uh,
Next week when I do this again, you're not allowed to cheat.
I mean, no. Then next week I'll just keep my tabs open.
From your memory,
I will never be caught unaware again.
from
It would have to be Aladdin because I like the Aladdin story enough that I'm willing to look past the flaws.
what is your least favorite? Not necessarily the worst, but your least favorite.
Hmm. 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 Let me think.
Really, I'm surprised you didn't immediately say Ali.
No. So this is where it's tough. It's close between Bad Boys and Ali.
Fair enough.
Um, I
Is it bad? Is
I
it
think
Bad Boys
I
because
think
it's a less interesting performance? It feels like you're gonna say you're winding up to say
well,
Bad Boys.
it's gonna be Bad Boys because I think it's the I think it's his weakest performance, and B, I don't understand how it spawned a franchise, and that kind of upsets me.
Fair
It
enough.
makes it worse.
For me, it's
Uh,
like I'm like Ali is really
Al,
Oscar
Al,
baity, and that's what.
Ali, yeah, that's where I'm like it's tough because for what it's trying to do, it just because I don't necessarily like it doesn't mean it's bad.
Fascinating. That's such a fascinating thing to hear you say. You know how many
Um,
for the audience's benefit? Do you know how many times I've said that to you? Don't understand how many times I've said that to him over the years. Like it's just like I've tried to like drill that message into his brain. It's just nice to hear it.
and so with Ali in particular, the other reason why I have to give it a
Just for
little bit
fun,
more than
what's the worst one? Do you think?
the of all the ones I watched.
Objectively, removing your personal feelings from it, what is the worst one?
Hmm.
I will allow you to look up your choices for this one.
I don't know. Objectively,
Yes. What is the worst one? Removing your personal feelings. I know which one that is.
okay. Okay, well, objectively, I would probably say that the no, but see that one's okay. Objectively, I would say Spies in Disguise because it killed the studio.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
it's hard to argue with.
but if I'm removing that element of it, then I would say Bad Boys.
Fascinating, interesting. All right then. So that's Will
Um,
Smith. Jordan, do you have any final
because
thoughts?
sorry, I just want to because the reason why Ali, while it's a confused movie, it is setting out with a goal, and it just because I don't, I think it could have been stronger, but it reaches the goal that it's trying to
Pretty
do
sure it got
adequately.
nominated for an Oscar.
Bad Bad Boys is a first director's first
Yeah.
run out the gate, and as a result of it being his first go at things, I think it's weaker as a
Yeah.
result, and that's not his fault necessarily. You got to start somewhere,
True.
but
True.
and that's where I would be interested to watch the second, third, fourth ones of that just to see.
You may have your opportunity, Jordan.
Like writing aside, like whether directorially, if it gets stronger.
So final thoughts on Mr. Hold on, Joe. Wait. Hold on. Actually, hold on.
I'm holding on.
Continue
I'm
to hold
holding on to
on.
the edge of my my bed here. I'm holding
Okay.
on.
Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm opening it up.
He's opening it up.
I'm
He's
opening up the
opening it up.
thing. Okay, Jordan, let's try this again. Take two. Jordan, do you have any final thoughts on Mr. Williard Carroll Smith Jr.?
I believe that he is an actor who deserves every bit of respect he has gotten over the years. I believe that he does, for the most part, even though he's just kind of being himself, he is a charismatic enough person, generally speaking, that I think he does elevate the things that he's in, usually.
All right.
Um, and I respect. It is fascinating to
Jordan,
see a man go from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air to doing like like Ali, like the vast difference in his career of where he came from to where he has gone is absolutely something to be
Jordan, what'd you
admired
say?
and respected.
Would you say that his career slaps?
No, I will never say that.
Would you say that his career slaps, Jordan?
I will not.
Jordan, Burt Wonderstone, Jordan, the final in our Jim Carrey palooza.
His
Um,
career slaps.
he said it. He said the thing. Burt Wonderstone. Burt Wonderstone isn't really a Jim Carrey movie. It is more of a Steve Carell movie. But have you heard of Burt Wonderstone, Jordan? The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, I believe, is the full title.
No.
No. So, Burt Wonderstone, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, it's about Steve Carell and Steve Buscemi. Both play stage magicians in Vegas. A sort of similar in sort of style to Siegfried and Roy, but without animals. But in terms of
So
their story,
is this pre or post mental breakdown?
this is 2013, so probably pre or just around there. One of the
Okay,
reviews
so
said Jim Carrey's back
so
to doing it. This is, I believe.
It might still be enjoyable then.
Oh, it is. It is actually. I mean, to be fair, he's not. We'll get to it. I'll get to it. Give me a moment. So yeah, Steve Carell and Steve Buscemi play stage magicians, and Steve Carell they've basically been residents at this casino for like 10 years, and they've sort of fallen apart as a duo. They hate each other. Their whole bit as they do big stage illusions. So like one of the tricks they do is they pretend you've seen it 1,000 times on Penn and Teller Fool Us, but it's the one where they pretend to hurt one of them and the other they have a hood on, they remove their hood and they've swapped, like that kind of trick. So like
Okay.
yeah, basically the plot of the trick is it's a hangman's noose and they're looking like they're gonna hang Steve Buscemi and they put the hood on him and then Steve Carell puts the hood on and then they hang him. And then the guy who's standing up front of the stage takes the hood off and they've swapped places. You know, that kind of trick? Yeah, you've seen it. They do like one of those. They do, there's one point where they're doing one where it's like they're stabbing swords into the box. It's basically really boring.
It's a classic.
Yeah, really boring stage illusions where you're like, yeah, I know how this works. In the meantime, on the scene has appeared Jim Carrey, who is basically Chris Angel. He's just Chris Angel.
He's the mind freak.
Yeah, like he's literally got a show called Mind Rapist. Like that's
Oh my god.
He's got like the long hair. He's one like he his whole thing is he's doing like the extreme tricks. And this movie is good, but like it's good if you're familiar with magic. Like there's a lot of like hyper specific jokes about Vegas magicians and just stage magicians generally that like I find funny, but a regular person might not. Like there's a really funny bit where Steve Buscemi and Steve Carell have broken up, and Steve Buscemi is doing this like documentary series where he's going to like the third world and like doing magic tricks for people in like Africa or like Asia or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, are you going to get these people food?" He's like, "No, I'm just here to do magic for them." And that's clearly making fun of Penn and Teller had a similar special called Penn and Teller like Travel the World or whatever, where they did the exact same thing. And it's clearly making fun of that. And he's like, I get that, but I'm like, is a regular person gonna get that? And like, yeah, I'm laughing at the fact that the magic tricks, like there's a really funny bit where they break up, and Steve Carell is trying to do all the magic tricks by himself, but he can't because the other guys. It's sort of like the magician equivalent to that bit from Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny, where it's Kyle Gass singing half the song. Yeah, where Kyle Gass is like singing half of the song. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And
That's funny.
there's and it's all the little stuff. Like there's a bit where later on where Steve Carell runs into Alan Arkin, who's basically like an aging magician who is teaching, who basically quit magic when he discovered he had sort of lost the love of it. And it's like him explaining exactly why Fool Us exists, where he's like, your job as the magician is you have to understand that every time, I know you've seen this trick 1,000 times, but they haven't. And it can't look like you have. Because if it looks like you have, the whole point of magic is like making a person temporarily believe that the impossible is possible. And it was like, this is exactly what Penn and Teller say about Fool Us. And there's a bit where he's like explaining this to Steve Carell, and he's got this little jar, and he smacks the jar, and a dove comes flying out of it. And Steve Carell has this look on his face, his mind's blown, and he's like, "How did you do that?" And he's like, "That is why we do magic. That look, that moment." And I'm like, that's what Fool Us was about. That was about Penn and Teller were like, we don't get to do that anymore. It's about finding that for us. And I'm like, yeah, as a person who's a lover of professional magic, of stage magicians, I really love this movie. I really appreciated it. And there's a really fun bit. So obviously the whole bit at the end is the casino owner who they worked for, he eventually gets fired because of drama, and he's opening up a new casino, and it's a performance-based movie, so they have to perform well at the big performance, and they're trying to figure out how are they going to do that. And they're like, the one trick that they can never figure out how to do is how to make the audience disappear. And there's a lot of really cool scenes of like Steve Carell of doing sleight of hand, where I'm like, oh, he's clearly not doing sleight of hand. And when you look it up, it's like, no, he actually did learn sleight of hand for this movie, and he's doing some impressive sleight of hand. Yeah. But anyway, sorry. The big final trick is they decide that they want to try to make the audience disappear, and
right.
They've never been able to make a whole audience disappear, and it's kind of a neat moment. It gets to the end, and they're like they've gone through the resolution. Everyone's all happy. They're all friends or whatever, and they're like, oh, if we get they basically, one of the countries that Steve Carell has been traveling, or Steve Buscemi has been traveling to, they're all addicted to this drug that knocks you out for an hour, which is a specific amount of time. But so they spray the audience with this mist, and it knocks them all out, and then they all wake up like thousands of miles, outside of the casino, outside, and they're like outside now. And then so it cuts back.
That feels like a crime.
Well, that's what they're like. They're like, oh shit, it's a crime. It's like this is definitely a crime. It's definitely a crime. And like, now we're gonna do it. And so then they make the audience appear in this field, and then they make them reappear back in the theater. And the ending credits shows how they do this trick, where it shows them get sprayed with the mist, and they put these gas masks on, and they just start tossing what is clearly dummies. Like, they're just dummies. They're just tossing them around and like dragging them around. They set up in the chair, and it cuts to all these people, and they all have like black eyes and shit from being like tossed around and shit. And so then they all go through, and they all put makeup on their faces to make sure they look okay. And it's just kind of funny because it's like, yeah, to see, oh yeah, that's how a trick like that would be done. And yeah, it's very, for someone who appreciates
the art
of magic, it's really funny. And yeah, as it really goes all in on Chris Angel. It ends with him. He's like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Because the whole bit with him is they're like, oh, he's too extreme. Like, he's too extreme. At one point, Steve Carell has studied the art of like sleight of hand, and he's doing this children's birthday party, and like Jim Carrey shows up, and he's trying to like do these really gnarly extreme tricks or whatever. And so his big, like, at one point he does this bit where he's like, oh, I'm gonna hold my pee for like 10 days, and there's this really funny bit where he's being interviewed by this reporter, and the reporter's like, how are you feeling? And he's like, I gotta be honest with you, man, I really gotta pee. And then there's all sorts of like weird, insane shit like that. And so his final trick he does is he has this drill, and he's like, yeah, I've discovered that I can drill a certain, like, if I hit the right spot, I won't drill through my brain. So he ends up drilling through his brain. it's yeah, it was one of those like
Sounds
movies.
ridiculous.
You know how like with it's similar to Sonic. Where remember how when Sonic came out, everyone was like, "Oh, Jim Carrey's back to being Jim Carrey."
Yeah.
That's what the reviews were like for this. Basically, we're like, "Oh, Jim Carrey's finally back to being Jim Carrey again." So when you're like, "Oh," I think it was sort of after that, like he's done Man on the Moon, he's done weird bad dramas, and like there was another weird drama that was in 0% on Rotten Tomatoes that I thought about watching. But I liked it, but it's not really a Jim Carrey movie. It's more of a Steve Carell movie than it is a Jim Carrey movie. But I would generally recommend it. Now, Jordan, you got to ask me.
What was your favorite?
See, I was thinking about that when I asked you, and I think it's gonna be Ace Ventura. Like it's torn. It's a kind of a three-way tie between Ace Ventura, Bruce Almighty, and Liar Liar. I love those movies.
Yeah.
I love those movies. I could still quote so much of Liar Liar by memory, but Ace Ventura is like that's where my comedy career, for lack of a better word, my instinct for comedy, my desire to be a comedian, it's that and a lot of Robin Williams. But like being able to quote this movie like almost word for word. Yeah, it's poorly aged, but some of the jokes are still funny. And it's like it's the start of that three like this, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all came out in this like same year. So it was
They came
three-way
out
punch,
within very rapid succession.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like massive. And yeah, in terms of like a first outing for his it's probably my favorite. You're gonna ask me what my least favorite is, aren't you?
I'm gonna ask what your least favorite is, and then what you think objectively the worst is. So first, what's your least favorite?
I think my least favorite is probably Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond.
I suspected that it would be.
Yeah.
And so then, objectively, what do you think is the worst?
Number 23, easily. It's the number 23. That movie's terrible.
That's fair.
That is terrible, incomprehensible nonsense.
From an objective standpoint, I would agree. From a non-objective standpoint, I think it is a fantastic comedy.
I don't know. It's so funny because I'm always the guy who's like, yeah, you love a movie because it's bad, and occasionally I can do that, but I think it's because part of me knows that he probably actually believes that bullshit and just like. It's so underexplained and so much of it. It's like a hair too far in the ridiculous for me to enjoy it for being bad. But hey, everyone's got a movie they enjoy for being bad, so I respect it. I'm not gonna say I don't respect your love of this movie because it's bad. I think I've sat on this show and said I like this movie because it's bad. So I'd be a hypocrite if I faulted you for that.
It's just another Jason X. Where it's like it's not a good movie, but I derive some enjoyment from it.
It's not that for me so much. But Jim Carrey, my ultimate summation of Jim Carrey, and I've said it a few times already today, but this is it. He's in terms of a performer, he's insecure as both a person and a performer. He's clearly gone through some stuff. I always suspected it was drugs, but yeah, he is insecure as a performer.
For legal reasons, we must state that these are opinions, and we are not making any definitive statements about whether or not Mr. James Carrey has ingested
any illegal narcotics. No.
Yes.
But his behaviors would suggest that he had. But no, he clearly is ashamed of. He says he will always appreciate, but he's clearly ashamed of being known as just a clown. But he couldn't find the right film. Like he couldn't find good. Like I'm just saying, if Truman Show had turned into like Good Will Hunting, like he needed a Good Will Hunting, and he just never got that. And I don't. But I look at his filmography, right? And I'm like, oh, where's his great big final hurrah? His big final, like this is the big final movie. And I'm looking at the back half of his filmography, and like. It ends with 3 Sonic movies in a row, and I love those movies, but that is kind of depressing.
I mean, it's definitely different.
From a guy who went from like multi-million, he's the guy who wrote a $10 million check to himself to now he's doing the Sonic movies. I don't know. It's a weird trajectory.
He's doing a thing that he finds fun. I don't know.
I suppose that is true. Anyway. That was Jim Carrey and Will Smith. Next time, another actor we do.
Sorry, real quick. I I choose to believe. I to a part do believe that that's him. That's legitimately him trolling the world, and like that's his way of being like, you people all wanted me to do sequels for years on all these other movies, and the one that I'm gonna do 3 times is Sonic.
Yeah, there's so many. That's the thing is he's the guy who. Well, to be fair, he did one sequel. He did Ace Ventura 2. It was poorly received and a horrible experience, and he never did another one again. And all of his movies, everyone wanted. And there were so many movies where they wanted to do sequels, but they wanted him. And there were so many times where it's like, nah, you didn't need him. You didn't need him. You could have made this in like this franchise. He held franchises back, in my opinion, by not wanting to do sequels, but not.
But I just feel like him doing the Sonic one 3 times
it does feel like a little
is
bit,
his ultimate like
fuck you,
pardon
basically.
the phrase here, but yeah, his ultimate fuck you to Hollywood is
basically.
what it feels like.
It seems that way. He drives me crazy because he does nothing, especially in that Jim and Andy Great Beyond documentary. He does nothing but criticize this. Nothing irritates me worse than a person who criticizes the system he participates in. Like, I'm sorry, you don't get to bitch about the fact that about Hollywood when you're part of Hollywood. Sorry, I'm sorry.
For me, it's not even just the participate in, but actively benefit from.
Yeah, it's hard for me to take you complaining about the nefariousness of Hollywood, Jim Carrey, when you made millions of dollars from them. Like, he's such a I can't stand hypocrites, and he just strikes me as the filthiest hypocrite.
Biggest.
But anyway, that was pick an actor. 2. Next time we'll pick another actor another time. But for next week, the assignment for next week, Jordan, I suppose you've been wondering, is it's funny you mentioned Bad Boys 2, because next week we're gonna do bad sequels. Because I saw, when I was looking at movies this week, I saw that I could maybe have access to Joker 2, Folly of Pooh, and Doing a Pooh, and I want to watch that movie. So we're gonna do sequels. We're gonna do sequels, and they're gonna be late game sequels. So we're talking part 3, part 4. I'm talking like Jaws 4, Superman 3, and
Cinderella 3, a time travel movie.
And the question we are gonna be asking ultimately next week is it a bad sequel? Is this a bad sequel? Is this actually a bad sequel, or has history been unkind and unfair to this movie? That's gonna be the question for next week, because I want to watch Joker 2, Doing a Pooh. So, it's apparently really bad, Jordan. I'm so excited. Anyway, that's next week. Jordan,
that's all you. You can have that one.
I can have Joker 2, Doing a Pooh.
I have no interest.
What if I tell you it's really good?
I won't believe you.
Anyway, Jordan, where can the people find you?
I do Minecraft Mondays on Twitch, Zethgore187, and on the weekends, presently Sundays, I do the Spur of the Moment podcast, where I sit here for 3 hours and talk about movies and mostly just movies.
It's funny how the show, next year the show will be 4 hours. It's just gonna get longer every single year, because when we first
eventually it'll just be an 8-hour stream.
It'll just be an 8-hour stream. That was distracting. Where can people find me? People can find me on TikTok at Justin Spurr. I don't post as much as I used to, because TikTok has been hitting my videos and it's been discouraging, but I still post on there every once in a while. We also have a show, TikTok, Spur of the Moment P, on TikTok, where I post all of the clips. We do the shorts on here. I have long form videos. Please go ahead and check out our 2-part, 2.5 hour, I think 2 hour, 40-minute long retrospective on the Friday the 13th and Halloween movies. I put some fun edits in there I'm kind of proud of. That was pretty fun. I go check that out. You can email the show if you would like to sponsor the show at itsjustinsbusiness@gmail.com. If you want to be on the show, we have a handy dandy Google thread, Google form you can fill out. Lets us know what you're interested in. And what else? Where else can people get us?
Discord.
Discord. You can follow us on Discord. I try to keep the link updated as much as I can. Am I missing any of our links? Oh, go to rtmedia.org. That's in the link as well.
Flight Center by Susan.
Yeah, check her out. She's in the description. I think that's it. We'll see you
Trophy
guys.
Smack.
We'll see you guys next week with bad sequels. Bye, everybody.